Welcome everybody to the April 16th, I believe, meeting of the Quincy Planning Board. To start, can I just have roll call?
Ali Shaughnessy, present.
John Kelly, present.
Kimberly Beelan present.
Chris Reed, present.
PJ Foley, present.
Perfect. And the first item is vote on the minutes of the March 19th Planning Board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
To approve, is that?
Oh, yes,
Yes,
yes.
okay.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'll abstain because I wasn't here. So next is the public hearing, and at the request of Councilman Ash.
Continuance.
Oh, I apologize. So then, the first item then we will take is 90 School Street. That's a continued public hearing, Planning Board case number 2025-01. And I'll read correspondence into the record from Attorney Christopher Harrington. Dear Mr. Fatsis, on behalf of the applicant, I am respectfully requesting a continuance of the public hearing for this case. The applicant engaged a traffic engineer who submitted a traffic report on April 14th, 2025. Our project engineer and architect are submitting revised plans within the next few days to address the most recent peer review report and city department comments. The applicant agrees to an extension of the time for the planning board to take final action on this application for a special permit as required by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9. For very truly yours, Christopher Harrington. And so that is a request for a continuance. I know that we have a busy agenda lined up for May. We have 4 hearings on already.
Right. The June meeting would be June 25th.
Okay, which is, I think, a week later than typical.
Normally,
Okay.
correct. Yeah, because his Juneteenth holiday is in the normal spot, the third week of June.
Okay,
So in the beginning of the year, the board moved it out a week because there's no July meeting this year.
okay.
Just, Madam Chair,
Yes.
would that be enough time, Mr. Stevens, or because we don't want them to come in front of us
I
and
think
not
the
have their
June
information?
should be enough time for the proponent to appear back in
Okay.
front of the board.
Yeah, and they do say that they plan to submit revised plans within the next few days, so that should be, I would hope, sufficient time for the reviews.
You mean the third set?
Yes. Yes,
Do you
okay.
want to speak to that?
Are you the project attorney?
I am not, I'm the
Yeah,
project engineer.
He's not here. I think.
It's continued, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't speak
Yeah.
on it.
But, so I think June, and we can always continue it out further if necessary, or we can consider any further continuances. So, how about a motion to move this to June
25th.
25th?
Motion to move it out to June 25th, 2025.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, so that's unanimous.
Pat Foley was late. He just arrived on Station Street.
Okay,
We want, he's coming.
sure. So,
We don't have a letter.
okay, so next we are bouncing around a little bit, but the next matter we'll take is a continued public hearing, 45 Station Street, Planning Board case number 2025-04. Attorney Foley?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Patrick Foley, business address 265 Willard Street. We're going to be withdrawing this project, and I just want to, preface this by saying we're doing a substantial redesign on it that, we just don't want to keep coming up here time after time and keep asking for continuances. We just want to do it once right, get it redesigned and refile and get back up here, so.
Okay. Okay, so let me see. Is there a motion to allow withdrawal without prejudice?
So be?
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, okay.
Mr.
Thank
Foley,
you.
thank you. That's for not wasting our time.
All right, so now, okay, so Councilman Ash, I know has another engagement to go to tonight, so we're going to hear public hearing 506 South Street Planning Board case number 2025-08 first. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the application of South Street Assets LLC, 136 Gray Street, Westwood, Mass. 02090, for site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance, Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review, and 5.1.17 parking waiver. The applicant proposes the removal of the existing residential building and construction of a new 4-story, 21-unit residential building with structured and exterior parking for a total of 35 spaces. The proposal will also include professionally designed drainage controls and landscaping. The property contains 19,984 square feet of land and is located at 506 South Street. The subject property is located within a Business B zoning district and shown on Assessor's Map 2067B, Lot 47. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and members of the board. For the record, my name is Edward Fleming. I'm here on behalf of South Street Assets LLC and Mr. David Lee and Ms. Cindy Zhu, its managers. I'm also joined tonight by Chi Man of Hardy Man Design, who is the civil engineer on this matter and will share the civil plans in a moment. And Brian Donahue from Donahue Architects, obviously the architect on this project, who will share those architectural plans. As you indicated, Madam Chair, this is property owned, located at 506 South Street in Quincy Point. It is zoned Business B. David and Cindy, the applicants tonight, have been before this board a couple of times, actually. Recently, they were here before the board on a project on Albertina and Branch, where this board permitted 8 units, which are under construction at the present. They also appeared before the board on 2 Wollaston projects, one a 94-unit project and another 27-unit project right on Old Colony Avenue in Quincy. So they're very experienced in these types of proposals. And David, I know, is here tonight with us and joining us. They recently acquired this property at 506 South Street. It is a 19,984 square foot parcel. It's located in a Business B zoning district. Interestingly, the neighborhood is kind of split between Business B, closer to East Howard Street, and the remaining portion of the neighborhood on Claremont and then in the streets further in on South Street, which is Residence B. So the majority of the neighborhood after this site are actually mostly 1, 2, and 3 family homes. Whereas the buildings on East Howard Street, as you're very familiar, or maybe familiar with the Watson, are a lot of larger development proposals. So each of these are really, this proposal actually fits within that Business B zoning district. And I would say it's almost in a transitionary zone between the larger developments in East Howard and the smaller proposals or homes on South Street in Claremont. The parcel right now is improved by a 3-family house. You'd never know that it's a 3-family by looking at it because it looks like a smaller home, but it's extended in the rear of the building. The yard is completely overgrown. It's littered with broken asphalt and was actually previously used by the prior owner to store property. It was strewn with trash and other miscellaneous equipment. When David and Cindy acquired the property, they requested at that time that be cleaned and cleared of all that debris, which it was. And so they've taken steps to try to clean the property since they've owned it. They've only owned it for now for a few months, but they've improved the condition of the property as it sits today. But it's really in a deteriorated condition. As I indicated, the neighborhood includes a lot of multifamily homes. As I said, the Residence B is mostly 2- and 3-family homes, some single-family homes as well, while the East Howard Street is the larger developments. The site also abuts a city-owned land in the rear of the site that's actually utilized, I think, for parking for the park that's across the street in that neighborhood. I think this is a great reuse of the site. So David and Cindy tonight are proposing to remove the existing 3-family house and construct a new 21-unit multifamily residential building. The building will include garage parking on the lower level. As you can see on that plan, South Street slopes quite a bit from one side to the other side of the site as it approaches East Howard Street. So this allows for 2 egresses to the site. So the building will actually provide under building parking in the garage that's located in the front of the site, as well as surface parking spaces above. And as you look at the building from this viewpoint as well, you'll see that it's 3 stories in height, and then as it slopes down South Street, it appears to be almost 4 stories in height because the garage on the lower level is exposed as you go down South Street. The building will include all 1 and 2 bedroom units, and there will be 35 parking spaces provided both under and on the surface parking lot. That's 1.66 spaces per unit. However, it also provides 1 parking space per bedroom. So for all the 2 bedrooms, each will be provided 2 spaces, and the 1 bedrooms will be provided 1. And these can be deeded with the units. I think the plan is, this is planned to be a condominium building. The plan of the owners is to deed 1 space per unit, and any party that wants a secondary unit or secondary parking space would have the option to acquire that additional space or rights to that additional space. There's some discussion whether or not we build within the condominium association bylaws the right of the parties of the condominium association to lease those spaces out. So they could lease those additional spaces out to the parties that want secondary spaces and bring in some income for the condominium association to help with the expenses. Or they could lease them out or they could sell those spaces in moving forward in the future. That's something we'll certainly talk about, and we can work into the condominium association bylaws. In addition to what I discussed tonight too, Chi Mann from Hardy Mann was retained to design, professionally design drainage control measures. Right now, the site has no drainage controls. Essentially, the water runs off the site down to East Howard Street. These new drainage controls will now manage and maintain drainage on site. And we've also provided, as part of the application package, a landscape plan. One of the things we talked about, if you look at the site right now on its aerial, you'll see that there's some mature growth in the back, some mature trees in the back of the site. So we asked the landscape architect to identify some trees that could be maintained, and we've agreed, or we're actually, our proposal provides, I think, to maintain probably 3 or 4 of those large mature trees in the back. Kind of, and in addition to the landscaping measures, it will actually dramatically improve the look of the site as it sits today. It really hasn't been cared for, unfortunately, and this is an opportunity now to really turn this around and bring it as an asset to the community. The application that we're here before this board for tonight is both site plan review and a special permit parking waiver. We do understand that we'll also need zoning board of appeals approval because this application for continued residential use converts the business B zoning to a residence C zone. The city in the past has actually granted or allowed the zoning board to grant findings to expand the residential use when the property has been used as residential. So we'll discuss that with the zoning board of appeals, but we understand that we're going to have to go to the zoning board of appeals for certain aspects of the zoning, whether it be a finding or whether it be a variance. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Brian Donahue to just kind of walk through the architectural plans, and then we'll have Chi talk about drainage.
Okay, great.
Yeah. This will forward, okay. Madam Chair, members of the board, Brian Donahue, Donahue Architects, 21 McGrath Highway in Quincy. We were retained by David and Cindy to look at this site in the fall, and we noticed the site had some challenges to begin with, and I'm going to try and get a general description. So the site, in my mind at least, is a buffer between a residential zone and a very industrial zone. We all know the shipyard is diagonally across the street. So we've got a real transition here. So what we tried to do from a design and aesthetic standpoint is kind of find a happy medium and mix the two. These first slides show the existing property, the existing home. The lower right shows the site in context, and the shipyard being to the lower right. So we're really on that precipice of the industrial area. So what we tried to do was take advantage of the topography, although it is a difficult site because you have a drop in elevation from the north and south is basically up and down on this aerial. So from the top left to the bottom right, it drops about 10 feet. So we tried to take advantage of that in a way to position the building and provide under building parking with grade parking as well. More context photos, our site and the infamous shipyard. So these two site plans, because we do have a level of parking below, show the grade basically on the right shows the lower level where we have 21 parking spaces. So 21 units, 21 parking spaces that Ed mentioned. Each unit will be deeded one space. And then there are 14 spaces up on the upper level elevation. And as Ed mentioned, those will be either rented or someone can buy those or deed them. But they are basically for the remainder of the parking and guest parking. So this plan actually, we have gone through a portion of the peer review and made some revisions to it. We're not presenting those this evening, but we will in a formal resubmittal. We've modified the parking layout a little bit on the top based on peer review comments on clearances and so forth, but the numbers are not changing. There's still 35 parking spaces. So as you can see, as the topography changes on South Street, you enter the garage at the lowest level, and then at the upper level, we have the pedestrian entry into the building. The first level of units is at that level, and the on-grade parking. The floor plans are actually quite simple, and they work out with the parking grid below. So these plans actually show 14 two-bedrooms and 7 one-bedrooms for a total of 21. We've already made a revision to go to 12 twos and 9 ones. So that's essentially getting rid of 2 bedrooms. And that is taking place on these levels here. Sorry. On the second and third level, this is not working on this
No.
screen.
It doesn't go on a
work.
TV
It doesn't work.
screen.
So this, on the second and third floor, these 2 bedrooms will be turned into 1 bedroom. So like I mentioned, we'll be going from 12 twos and 9 ones. The area of the units, they're fairly generous. The 2 bedrooms are around 1,000 square feet, and the 1 bedrooms are around 650, 620 to 650. As I also mentioned, we have responded to the peer review. They requested that we designate the number of bikes in our bike storage area, which is at the end of the parking level, where we've now shown 18 bike storage areas back there. They also made comments about roof equipment and roof screening. So we, in our next submission, we'll be showing that we are providing roof screening for any rooftop condensing units, ERVs, mechanical equipment that's up there. The elevations, as I mentioned, the aesthetic is sort of a combination. We were using fairly common residential materials, lap siding, shingles. We are using some cementitious panel systems, and I like to go to the renderings. They always tell a better story. And then also on the front of the building, we are using some corrugated metal, sort of in deference to the industrial aesthetic that we're also going for. So the render views really tell what the building looks like. As Ed mentioned, it reads as 3 stories from the upper level with our resident entry at that level. And then as you can see, the site drops down. We also have, and She-Man will get into this a little bit, we have a transformer which is kind of located at the front of the building, and he will go through where that is the screening that's taking place for that. The windows, the windows are really a major part of this design. We're trying to get, although the units are generous, we're trying to get as much light into them as possible. So we've got, in living room spaces, we've got floor-to-ceiling windows. In bedrooms, not so generous. As Ed mentioned, the landscape plan is really trying to take advantage of the existing trees that are at the rear of the site. So we've got 3 major trees, 2 of which are on the property. One is on the abutting property, the upper left. That would be a new tree. As you go down the sheet, there's another fairly good sized shade tree. And anything, as the key legend says, the proposed shade trees are located in the lighter green. So we're softening up the front of the building as well with some shade trees. In terms of exterior space, we're hugging the lot line on the east side, so the foundation is 10 feet off the property line. There'll be a fence there, and there is an existing retaining wall between the properties. So there's a little area there, and also in the northeast end for taking your dog out to do his business and so forth. So other than that, it's fairly light on the landscaping. But we think it's sufficient enough and softens the building up enough. So that's pretty much the architectural presentation. I guess we'll have Chi-Man go through the civil.
Good evening. My name is Chi-Man from Hardiman Design Group. I'm civil engineers working on this project. So we can go right up to the site plan. As you can see on the architectural site plan, we have the layout of the parking under the building. You can see those are going to be deeded to each of the unit, and we also have the surface parking with 2 different entrances. Curb cut into the site. One is to the surface parking. On the site itself is different elevations. You can see on the upper parking lot is elevation about 25, and at the curb cut on the lower entrance to the underground parking is about 17. So you can see the elevation change really quick, and the building design and the parking design is really taking advantage of the topography, and site is not going to have a lot of cut fill per se. It's just really getting the foundation and the building in. The earthwork is going to be very minimal. For the drainage design, we have the upper parking lot area. We have catch basin and stormwater quality structure that is going to be capturing all the parking lot runoff, and it's going to go right into we have 2 Caltech systems. One is to mitigate the parking lot runoff, which also has, the Caltech system also have something called the isolation road, which is a treatment system that we can improve the water quality before they do infiltrations. And on the second system, the roof runoff will actually from the building, from the roof drain will directly go into the underground Caltech system under the parking area. And we lay it out, trying to avoid all the foundation and so forth, so fit it in. It is a tight site, but we did the boring on site, geotechnical engineers, so we know what the soil condition is and know what the groundwater elevation is, so we're working with that to design the system. Sanitary will be connecting directly to the city sewer line right on South Street, as well as the fire protection and the domestic water system. For the transformer, you can see on a little square on the T. So we are trying to tuck that into I'll call a transformer well because of the elevation change, so that the transformer pad is going to be pretty close to the garage grade, which is about 16, 17, as in,
I was just gonna show the elevation change that allows you to.
actually this, the rendering is good. The rendering doesn't show it, but I can show you right here. This wall is going to be elevation change on that retaining wall, so we're going to tuck the transformer kind of shield behind the retaining wall on the street, and in front of the retaining wall there will be some low planting. It's not so we are planning on some low planting, so it won't be blocking the sight distance when the car getting out, but it will be high enough so we can shield the transformer from the street line.
So instead of the transformer sitting at this grade and protruding up in front of the building,
It'll be sunken in.
it'll be sunken down into that.
Are you gonna be on the driveway?
Into that wall, and it's gonna be serviced from the driveway.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be protected from that retaining wall is gonna be protecting that
From the,
side.
from the street side, and also we'll have
One side.
bollard.
So what if a car's coming in the other direction and it could slam right into it?
We'll have a bollard.
Two bollards.
You're gonna have a couple bollards in
Yeah.
front of it?
We'll actually have a retaining wall, a short retaining wall, so they can surface it and
I just
also
have a
bollard.
question regarding that door. I mean, that door doesn't look like you have a lot of room to hide a transformer there. The garage door? You see the garage door?
Mm-hmm.
You don't look like you have 5 feet there between the retaining wall and that door.
No, it will sit really within this area.
Between the building and the
So
street.
you're gonna be up top.
No.
No, it will sit, it will be.
You're gonna
down,
suppress it?
It'll be down, yeah, be suppressed down to this level, and it'll be serviced from this area. So therefore, it won't be sitting on the green and protruding above, it will be sunken down to this level, and you'll be able to see into the transformer here, but it will be protected by a retaining wall and bollards.
There'll be surface on the driveway side, getting into the building.
So if it's sunk down, how are you gonna have fall protection there, right? Right, I mean, it's gonna be below grade, right?
It's below grade, so
you're gonna
that
have
is,
some type of fall protection there, or?
Yes,
Because you're gonna
there's-
have a sidewalk, I assume, along the front of it, right?
the sidewalk, we are in discussion. We got some peer review comments as well on the, talk about making a public sidewalk, but I think we try to discuss with the city about the sidewalk, because the existing grade on the street does not allow us to put in an ADA compliant sidewalk. So it's a little, how
Yeah,
this,
there isn't a sidewalk right now on this side, there is a sidewalk on the opposite side, so we're gonna work with the city traffic engineer just to allow that sidewalk. But I understand your comment, but we anticipate that these shrubs here, Mr. Shaughnessy, will be in front of the transformer, so there will be, you won't see the transformer, and there will be no access to it. But we can certainly put behind those shrubs, we could put some kind of a fail-safe protection, just in case somebody were to.
So is there gonna be any curbing along that wall? So there's gonna be no sidewalk
And then there's gonna be a wall.
and a wall, so
Right.
no curbing, no sidewalk, a wall. So the cars are driving up the street, there's nothing,
No, there'll be, I don't know if we're talking about a decorative wall in that location, or if it's just gonna be, cement. But it will-
Well, at this point, it's just a cement wall, but it's.
so I'm a little confused. So if you're walking down the street, down South Street, and you come across, what's the street that's on the corner there, the next one? You cross that street.
Fairmont.
So do you then have to walk across South Street to get to a sidewalk?
You do now,
Yeah,
You do now.
yes.
yeah,
there's
there's
no
no sidewalk.
sidewalk
on
in
that
front
side
of the
at all.
site.
And you don't have the depth to push it back some, so you can put a sidewalk there, right?
Well,
It's part of the public way, we're
Yes.
not intruding into the public
Okay,
way,
okay.
but the public way really doesn't have a sidewalk. And as she was saying, because of the slope, it's impossible to do a handicap accessible sidewalk. So which is easier to do on the opposite side, that's why the city put the sidewalk on the opposite side.
And you're gonna have clearance to work on that transformer in there?
yes.
Yeah.
We'll work with National Grid on that.
And actually,
It looks
that,
awful tight to me, that's all I can say.
that is the location that the
Right, but they
power
didn't say you were
company
gonna
tell
take it
us.
down in a wall and put walls around it and cover it and block it, did they know that?
Well, certainly, they have sidewalk vault that they can
Okay.
get down.
Good luck.
So,
We understand, but that's where we intend to do it at present.
I'm actually working on a project in Brookline, they don't allow transformer in the front, they have to have a vault underground.
Well, it's very
So,
dangerous, I mean,
Well,
a
they
car
make
come
you do a
around that
vault,
turn
yeah.
and hit it.
14 by 8
Kaboom.
vault underground.
I know, I asked for a vault on the other project we were talking about a month ago. You said you can't have a vault because they won't give you one.
Yep.
They won't allow it. But in Brookline, they make you have it.
This is-
Boston, they make you have it.
Yeah.
But here in Quincy, they tell us you can't have a vault.
Well,
That's the utility telling us that.
Yeah. I
That's a
think,
little
you know, the city grant, I think city council grant, the use of easement or something, for the utility.
Chair, I think,
So-
Kelly, it's on, we're National Grid, they have their set of rules, Eversource, I prefer the, we were following Eversource's guidelines, but we're not.
So that's the proposed utility, the electrical connections at this point. And that is actually the location that the power company tell us where they want the transformer. So the drainage system itself is very self-contained. We don't have a drain line on the street or abutting properties that we have an overflow system that can tie into. So basically, you know, we're taking all the roof runoff and the parking lot runoff and infiltrate everything on site. So it's going to be a huge reduction of runoff that going off into out to the South Street or East Harwood or the abutting properties. If there's any questions.
Sure, let's,
I just
Member
was just
Chung.
gonna ask a question.
Yeah.
Is these gonna be electric or gas? What are you doing for the power here?
I believe it's
For heat?
electric.
Electric?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
yeah, I just a couple things, I mean, Mr. Donahue, you mentioned yourself that it's lacking green space. I'm looking at the prints, it's not 10 feet over, it's 8'7",
That's with the bump outs. That's
okay?
the site plan. that's
But
with
it
the-
just doesn't, to me, I mean, it's a nice looking building, but man, you got no green space whatsoever, nothing. And I know you're in an industrial area and there's all brick around there,
But I can say too, Mr. Kelly, that there's no green space on the site now. Right now, we're putting the driveway and the parking area, this entire area is presently paved for the for the three-family.
Right, now you wanna put
This-
30 units, 21 units in there.
This entire area here is all packed gravel surface, and it's not, there's no green
I'm very
space.
familiar with the lot, right?
What
I'm
I'm
just saying,
Right,
I don't think there's a lot of green space. Now you
I
put
understand.
21 units in there, you only got 3 units in there. That's my opinion,
right.
okay? I get you're in an industrial area, I get it. But my opinion, I don't think it's enough green space.
Okay.
That's all my opinion. What's going on with the lighting? You got park lighting outside?
We've got a photometric plan in the works. We haven't, it hasn't been
We
completed.
haven't seen it
But
yet.
it's not gonna be any pole lighting. It's all gonna be wall packs and bollards. No significant bulb.
And then you also mentioned that the units were gonna be up on the roof, you're gonna have a perimeter barrier around it so you don't see all the units up there?
So you won't see them, yes.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions here? No? Okay. I do have just a couple questions. So, any designation, I mean, you talked about selling basically all of the spaces on site for guest parking?
So there's, I think there's 35 spaces, 33 for one per bedroom, so there will be a couple of additional spaces. The intention actually is to sell one per unit.
Yeah.
And therefore have the entire surface parking area available for visitors, or short-term parking. It will have to be determined by the condominium association whether there's a demand for additional parking. And if so, those additional spaces could be sold or could be leased. The hope is, and the intention is that a lot of those surface, or some of those surface parking spaces will be available for guests.
Okay. Oh, the fence on the, I guess would be the western side of the property. Is there, I saw that there was, I think, a proposed fence, at least along, let's say this, the southwestmost property. Is there a fence proposed along the entire length of the way, a new fence?
I don't think we have one on the rear. I think we have it on the right, east and the west.
Okay, but not the north. But a new fence on the west along,
Right.
Okay.
Along the property line, there will be a new
Okay.
fence, so, right?
yeah.
6 foot. And in fact, there was some discussion about utilizing maybe cap lighting on the fence to light, to answer your question about lighting, to light the parking along the fence, so that the fence would be visible when folks pull in.
So would that cap lighting be visible from the other properties too? Is it on top or is it?
It sits, yeah, I mean, the cap lighting that's intended was to sit, I think, on the pillars of the fence.
Yeah.
Although we could certainly utilize different type of lighting which actually sits only on this side of the fence.
'Cause that'll still,
That would be my preference, to avoid light spill.
We'll do a photometric to make sure that it doesn't spill.
Okay. Trash. Could you just highlight what the plan is with that?
Looks like it's to the right of the driveway entrance there.
The trash room is on the lower level and the garage door for the walkway out,
Yeah.
so the bins when you pull that apart.
Yeah, I mean, so you're showing, I guess, four, well, I would say would be average size bins. I know that I'm well, I shouldn't say a single woman, but I'm, generally, I live alone. I know that I use two trash bins, right? I have a big recycling bin, I have a trash bin. It seems incredible to me, and I know that there are calculations that can be done, that those 4 bins would be sufficient for 21 dwelling units.
Well, I guess it comes down to the frequency of the pickup as well.
Okay, so you said that you were gonna be rolling them out, so is it a private contractor who's
It would
who's
be,
going to be
it's gonna
picking
be
up the trash?
it's gonna be an HOA, it's gonna be a condominium.
Yeah, well, I know,
association.
but a lot of condo associations, they don't have private pickup, they use the municipal pickup,
So I think any unit over 8 is
Yeah.
required to have their
Okay.
own private source, so we'll have private pickup source. And yeah, the determination on the volume or the
Yeah.
frequency of pickup will have to be determined during use. But
Yeah.
you're right,
I mean, it just seems
tiny.
very small.
Okay.
So maybe one of the parking spaces, they don't sell it, they can put a small dumpster there or something?
So, yeah, so I think that should be given some look. And I would just, actually, there was another concern, so there was a site plan that was just up. It looked like it showed some, I guess, land area along the frontage, and that one shows that as well, the transformer, and then there's some grass or landscaping in front of it. I don't know if that's consistent with the other photo that we were looking at that seemed to show just the wall adjacent to the street. So I'm just wondering which one is
Well,
correct, I suppose.
I mean, the landscape plan and the civil plans are the correct
Yeah,
plans.
okay.
The three-dimensional renderings are meant to be
Like schematic, yeah.
schematic.
Okay.
So this, and while we're on that subject, I just wanted to make clear that what we're talking about with the transformer was in an effort to hide it. We
Yeah.
know that it's been an issue of discussion, and we would rather not have it up at that level against the building unsightly and then have to worry about land. So the reason, I mean, we can move the wall that's in the front out a little bit to get more clearance, but we thought it made sense and to try and conceal it
Yeah.
behind a wall, and it wouldn't be as unsightly
Yeah.
as they can be. So
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think actually what's going to happen, at least on this, it appears that there's landscaping in front of it, so there will be kind of that added protection, and so I think appears to be better, at least on this plan, than maybe what we were looking at before. I have I'll just mention the 2 areas of concern that I have on this. One, I want to commend you for maintaining the large trees in the back. I do have a concern about the parking spaces being right up against the western property boundary. I know that there's going to be a fence there, but it's right up against there. That's a lot of cars kind of right up against these properties on the other side. And so obviously noise, lighting, and there's really no buffer on that side. There's no I know that there's a fence, but there's no landscape buffer, there's no distance, they're not set back at all, so I would say that's a concern. And I share Member Kelly's concern about the lack of on-site green space. And I get it, you're trying to fit a building that houses 21 units with the parking on the site, and I think you said, it's a tight site. Well, it's a tight site if you're putting 21 units in. So, some landscaping or some additional green area, I think makes sense. I don't see if the primary entrance is right adjacent to the street, somebody with the dog is going to come out their primary entrance and then walk all the way to the back of the building to let their dog out. So some additional green area, I think, would be beneficial as well. See, are there any other questions? Or? Yes.
I had one that came up, a couple of the issues that came up. Brian, I noticed in one of the views, you've got like a pedestrian or working person access to the roof, like a doghouse on the, what am I looking at here? The view, yeah. Had you considered using any roof space, common area, rooftop deck? Believe it or not, as we all know, you can see overlooking the train tracks, and some people actually find that kind of interesting, but you also got a bird's eye view of that ball field, and that field is loaded with kids on the weekends playing. Just to address the lack of space, it's just a thought.
I think that's a very good point, and we can certainly take a look at that. We haven't discussed that with the client as much, but
No, thank you. Just thought I'd mention it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
that could supplement some of the green space, for sure. Very good point.
All right. Counselor Ash, would you like to come speak on this?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll just open the public hearing.
Yeah, well, big meeting. Oh, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a public hearing, so people are welcome to come and make comment. You can also sign in on the side and say whether you're for or against the project, but if anybody's here to speak on this project? Yeah. Oh, sir, yeah. Sorry about that.
Good evening. My name is Jack Mayo. I live at 16 Claremont Avenue. Madam Chairman, members of the board, excuse me if I don't look right at you a lot. At my age, I have to have things written down to read. So I'd like to commend the architect on this beautiful rendition of this building. It'd be nice if it was a nice big open space to put it in, is the problem I have. Because reality is, it isn't. It's like a classic example of trying to put 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag. It doesn't work. This house, or this building, is right up against the homes that are on Claremont Avenue now. And it's a series of single and two-family homes with one 3-story home on the corner. It just blows my mind to think that they even wanted to consider something like this. At one point, I know, about a year ago here, I think we were talking about storing 28 boats back there or something, and they withdrew that proposal. But I'd like to address it from a different perspective. I'm gonna say I have two different things that I'd like to express. One is quantity, and the other one is quality. And again, excuse me for having to look down. But presently, single and two-family homes along the street with this new 4-story building in their backyards, which is what it is. This proposal indicates there would be parking spaces. I see it more likely needing, they talked about having 35 parking spaces. Conservatively, I would say they're probably gonna need 40 to 45. You're talking 35 parking spaces. That's if all the people live in there. No one has any friends. No one comes over the house. They don't do that. Just blows my mind to think that they can think along those lines. And it's in an now overly congested area, to put it mildly. We have the mosque down at the end of the street, which has numerous occasions where they will easily draw 100 cars parking all over the place. We've got residential building across from the shipyard, the Watson, which built brand new, beautiful looking building, and everything else. Park, all kinds of parking spaces underneath. Go by there sometime and see all the cars parked out on the street. Because people want to come out their door and get in the car and go. They don't want to deal with a garage. That's just the realities of life. As I indicated here, let's tell it like it really would be. Dozens more cars all over the area. And I've lived in my home now on Claremont Avenue, my wife and I, for 60 years. We've been there now. And of course, time goes on. We're not, as I was probably not too far removed from the horse and buggy, but we had cars still, although they were minimal. And now you can hardly get out of your house. There's cars everywhere. And now we're talking putting 40 or 50 more cars down there. It just, to me, just makes no sense at all. Assurances about controlled parking doesn't cut it. Parking on the property parking on the property owned by an absentee landlord. This is the same person that owns 23 Claremont Avenue that's putting the two townhouses facing South Street on there. They indicated that they're gonna have parking behind there on the land and so on. Well, there's parking there for the one at 23 Claremont, the house that is actually there, the multi-residence place. And they park all over the street. She claims they don't, and the indication was that she lived there. I asked if she lived in the house. She said, oh no, I live in Quincy. I said, well, then you are an absentee landlord. Facts. And the next question I would ask is, at what point do we as a society, as members of a community, say enough is enough? The city of Quincy, through eminent domain, have taken over all kinds of properties all over the city. Recently, want to take down the Acapulco restaurant, I think it is, down in Quincy Center, and they're going to put a small park in there with a statue of some sort in there. Well, these kinds of things are wonderful. Why not a small park down where this property is, and put in there and put some benches and some lighting maybe, where the local residents would have some place to go outside and sit with their children and so forth. But no, if you stand on Claremont Avenue now, and you, on where I live on Claremont Avenue, you look down towards the end of the street where it turns there, and you're looking at these residential homes. Now you're gonna look at them and seeing 4-story building up behind it. Doesn't fit in my mind. The city has acquired numerous parcels of land throughout the city to enhance the beauty of the surrounding areas. This seems like a perfect spot to do such a thing for the residents of Quincy Point as well. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Hi, Maggie McKee, 117 Rawson Road. I just wanted to ask a question, actually. I don't know if that's allowed, but I was glad to see that some of the mature trees will be kept, but I was wondering how many mature trees will be removed from the property, because, and also if the folks are aware of the city's tree ordinance, which requires, okay, anything over 8 inches to be paid into have a tree plan and paid into the fee.
Two trees would be removed.
Okay, 2 trees removed. Thank you. And I guess counterpoint about the parking, I actually think it's better to have fewer required parking spaces and just boost public transportation. But I know that's outside of the purview of this, but thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this application? Councilman Adams.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Richard Ash, Ward 2 Councilor, 7 Silver Street. I hosted a community meeting on this last fall, I believe. I'm sorry, the initial proposal for the boat storage was last fall. At a meeting on this a couple months ago, Mr. Mayo, as he stated, with 6 decades in the neighborhood, knows it better than any of us possibly could. The issues that he iterated, I won't rehash all of them. I will just mention the street right now is a one-way, which I believe contributes to the lack of a curb on this side of the road. I know we discussed really any proposal over and above the current usage of the property would need some traffic opinions and probably at least lifting that one way to get in and out of the garage under this property. The issues are before you for the parking waiver and site plan review. Obviously, I don't think it goes without saying, we'd like to see more parking in addition to the Islamic Center that's on the other end of this stretch of South Street. There's also a new proposal going in at 23 Claremont. Those are 2 pretty large townhomes, which is just a stone's throw from this parcel as well. I don't know how you get more parking in there, but those are the issues that came up. Certainly, with respect to the buildings like the Watson, it's correct, and I don't think that'd be a surprise to anybody that these residents and tenants, whether they're owners or apartments, they do want to park outside, get in their car. I'd be a little wary to put all of the parking spaces out up for sale or for rent. I think some of them need to stay as guest parking. So all in all, of course, again, the building looks nice. I think the design, the residents appreciated the design. Of course, it should come as no surprise. They want to follow a smaller footprint and some more parking if there's any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you know what? I did have a question for Attorney Fleming. What variances are going to be needed, or is it just because of the zoning change? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Would you like me to address
Oh, sure, yes, yeah.
As I indicated, Counselor, the city has granted findings in cases where a residential has been utilized on a business B site and is being, and the request is to expand that residential use. However, if the zoning board has differences of opinion on that, then the relief that we'll be seeking will be lot size per unit. We have setback relief because of the setbacks on the building, because of the unusual shape and the topography of the building, and the green space that's been raised by Member Kelly and Beeline. Those are the 3 issues of relief. The parking relief that we're seeking is being requested by a special permit here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, would anybody else like to speak on this? Okay. Attorney Fleming, do you have anything else that you want to add, or are you good? I think we're looking at a continuance of this.
Yeah, no, nothing further, and as Mr. Donahue indicated, we have amendments that we'll present at the desk.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we are looking at June 25th for this continuance because we do have a full May 21st schedule. So is there a motion to continue to that date?
Motion to move it to June 25th.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we'll return to kind of regular scheduled programming from here on out. And so the first item on the agenda is a continued public hearing, 552 Hancock Street and 8 Ellington Road, Planning Board case number 2025-02. Thank you. Thank you.
Let me apologize early on, because I'm going to be up here all night now. So, again, for the record, Edward Fleming, here on behalf of the Wollaston Lutheran Church. This, as you indicated, is a continued hearing. I'm gonna turn this over to my colleagues in a moment. Both Michael Joyce, the city's, the civil engineer, and James Edwards, our architect, will be here to respond. But I just kind of want to walk through. The last time we were here, we actually made a presentation of the revised plans, and as you may remember, there was a significant change in the size of the proposal that was provided, where there was the building was basically now an L shape, and the garage area that's shown in the back now as a parking area was removed from the building, along with 5 stories of height. So there was a significant reduction in this overall size of the development. There were a number of questions or comments that were raised, and I'll just kind of walk through those, and then maybe Jim can just kind of show, or Mike can show you on the plans. There were questions about that were raised by you, Madam Chair, about the location of the trash bin and a continued landscaping strip along the back of the site. Changes were made to that to address the concerns that you raised there. There were questions about the snow storage area in the parking area, and you raised concerns about the damage to plantings that could occur if snow was simply plowed on that storage area. There were issues related to the location of the transformer and how we could seek to maybe relocate the transformer, which steps were taken to do so here. Exterior lighting and traffic mitigation measures, as well as questions about parking. We tried and worked with peer review. As you may remember, the peer review had not been fully completed at that time, and we continue to work with peer review. Michael Joyce did a great job in working with peer review, along with Jim Edwards, to address all of those comments and concerns. So, Michael or Jim, do you want to just kind of walk through these changes, Mike? All right.
Thank you.
Hello, Michael Joyce with Joyce Consulting Group, civil engineers for the project, 439 Washington Street in Braintree. So I'll just kind of give you a bird's eye view of what we've changed. I don't know how much we got into drainage the first time around because I wasn't here for the initial hearing, but it's just a 25-unit Caltech system below the parking area, which contains up to the 25-year storm and then overflows, but with reduced rates in the 100-year storm. So one of the main changes we made was originally the transformer was in front of the Fennel House to the left of the building. It was in this area here. It's being relocated to the green space here. There'll also be a proposed tree for screening in the front with the bollards around it. So that was one of the main concerns, I believe, last hearing. There was also concerns. I'm going to run through kind of what CEC had for concerns in their peer review and how we addressed them. One of the concerns was additional signage and details on signage for the ADA and striping information, which we provided. So this is just kind of with the striping layout. They wanted to see the number of parking spaces, so we included that. There was some grading clarifications within the parking area. We provided that information to show that it's ADA compliant. It's coordination between the civil and architectural plans. One of the other issues I believe that was raised was the trash area. Initially, it was pushed right up, more or less, up against the property line. We've brought it within the building footprint. So it's totes, it'll be here, it'll be rolled out and picked up by a provider. I'm not sure what the time frame is on that, what the regularity is. Then we had some stormwater revisions, but there were more kind of technical calculation revisions, some updating of the operation and maintenance plan. And we also added, on the Fennel House side, there ended up being this localized low area. So we added an infiltration area to that side to address any stormwater runoff that may pool in that area. So those are the main changes from the civil standpoint.
And I'll just highlight, rather than going through the full presentation, we'll just highlight some of the other changes. One of the changes that was raised, it was a concern about the trash that was located in this area here. There was concern raised that it was too close to the neighbor. So what was done was, there was initially just a landscaping strip of bushes along that area. That was now replaced by a fence, and the trash room is now enclosed as opposed to being an open trash area. So that's done for the protection of our abutting neighbor. Also, because we removed the landscape strip along this particular area, that grass area now that abuts the parking area is now open grass area, and that can be utilized for snow storage. That also addresses the other concern. We provided a photometric plan as part of the new submittal, and that addresses issues related to building lighting, and also pole lighting that was provided on the architectural plans. There was a question raised, I think, by you, Member Beeline, about sidewalk improvements and issues related to delivery vehicles. I think Michael just addressed the delivery vehicles, and we provided an updated traffic report from our traffic engineer to the city's traffic engineer addressing issues related to sidewalk improvement, the removal of some spaces, parking spaces in the areas of that were close to the intersection of Ellington Road. We also provided the parking agreements that were entered into with the DeWare Funeral Home and also the Fenno House that allows parking in those particular facilities during busy hours. We were unable to reach an agreement with the supermarket across the street, and also unable to confirm their zoning compliance because it was done through a PUD zoning provision years ago. But there is a parking lot with 26 parking spaces that's actually in the front of that parcel that was actually developed as part of that development to allow for parking for businesses in the area. So that's our presentation this evening. We're comfortable that we've responded to all the peer review comments, and I believe the department has a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? No? Okay, so this is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak, you can come up to the podium. Also, yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. And while you make your way, I'll just remind everybody that we have sign-in sheets along the windows. You might also get a glimpse, there was a turkey hanging out outside on the wall. But you can sign in for our events.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name's Maria Veneto. I'm a resident of Fenno House. And I speak for a number of residents who obviously can't be here because of our age. If I was home, I'd be in my pajamas right now with my cats. True. And also because the Lutheran Church is our landlord. We acknowledge the church needs renovations, revisions, and whatever, but this is, I have the rendering here next to Fenno House, and what's not shown there is Fenno House. The new things, they're gonna block, it's gonna be at eye level with residents' living areas to go up. They want an open space outside, which will cause a lot of noise, which causes a lot of noise now when they do have functions and children outside. It's very noisy. Photometrics, which is something I just recently read about. Unfortunately, I don't have a computer to print out some of these things. Just recently, they took down 3 mature growth trees that provided shade for the back of Fenno House, cooling and breeze. And now I know my apartment, I have to turn on the air conditioner like by the end of April till October. So with this building being there, is photometrics, does that count like reflection off the building at the end of the day? Because my side faces, it would be east, so it's the west where the sun goes down. It raises the temperature like 10 degrees in my apartment. So, I mean, and it's really maybe 12 feet. And I don't know why Fenno House isn't shown on there, because it's intrusive on Fenno House. I mean, the church needs renovations, it needs updating. And at what point is it not a church if there's residences in there, and function halls, and kitchens, and all kinds of activity with only 6 parking spots? I mean, at what point does it become something else other than a church? And And one of the big concerns my neighbors have is during the tear down. A lot of us have COPD, breathing issues. What would be done to minimize dust collection, and has there been asbestos remediation in the building? It's an old building, obviously. So those kind of concerns, have they been addressed? Noise concerns? And it's funny, you talk about the parking. We have a lot of problems with parking at Fenno House. And I don't know if they think they just can come in and use our parking area. We have a lot of residents that park there. And unless something's really clearly delineated, what is for the church, what is for Fenno House residents, guests, whatever, then it's gonna be chaotic, really chaotic. And don't forget, we're senior citizens in that building, that are inconvenienced by someone taking our parking spot. And we have to carry, bags of groceries, whatever, across. So those are some of the concerns that I have right now. Plus, I had noticed actually in the thing, the peer review, a lot of things had not been addressed as of April 3rd. It says we're not addressed. There's a whole list of things. I think it's a great idea. I think it's way too big. It's intrusive on the street. It's right up against our building. Like I said, it's gonna have visuals right into people's apartments, 12 feet away, 15 feet away. And I think a little more compact and without like housing and all these activity spaces would be more appropriate as a church. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to speak on this application? Yep.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board. I'm Valerie Rubino. I live on Ellington Road. I think this project is just really too large for a residential area. We went through the renovation of the Fenno House, which was really burdensome, noisy, and disruptive. This seems much more significant, and especially where the building is placed so close to Hancock Street, which is now, almost like the Southeast Expressway, constant traffic. I reviewed the plans that were online for the deliveries and so forth, and it appears that all of deliveries will be down through Ellington Road. With DeWare Funeral Home right across the street, they've rejiggered their parking lot, but any day that they have a funeral or a wake, our road is lined with cars participating with the services. We have many residents on our street that have multiple cars, so our street becomes more narrow all the time. We have often had instances where emergency vehicles, particularly fire trucks, sit at the top of the street and just lay on the horn because they cannot get down Ellington Road. Time is of the essence in such a circumstance, and my concern is, I don't even know, unless you're going to tell us that we can't park halfway down Ellington Road during construction, how are these 16-wheeler trucks or whatever, demolition machinery, where are they going to be positioned to do all of this destruction, to remove the existing buildings, materials being delivered? What is being accounted for the storage of materials, machinery? And I know I had asked when this was first raised a couple of years ago, I think, about a traffic study. The traffic on Hancock Street has significantly changed. So what do we anticipate is going to happen, especially with the new Asian markets, the multiple traffic lights? It's pretty much, and the gas station that's diagonally across the street, that creates chaos many days with people trying to go different ways into the parking lot and across Hancock Street. I just don't think that, I'm really concerned, and in the snow, if we have a bad winter, how is Hancock Street going to be able to do sufficient snow removal to accommodate the cars that we have on, as residents, as well as all this extra materials and so forth. I think at a previous meeting, someone had said that, DeWare had offered an ability to put dumpsters and store some materials there, but they're so busy, and you certainly can't store it at the Fenno House. I wonder what the expectations are around for all of the materials and so forth that supports this. I just think all of our neighbors, and unfortunately, we were not invited to the last meeting, so I'm not sure all of our neighbors on the street are aware of all of the expectations going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, you just have to come up again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I just want to add one thing, going back to what the previous speaker said about the construction and renovation at Fenno House. And it was a big project, and the residents went through it, and it was a lot of disruption in their daily lives. This will add to that disruption again. But plus, in retrospect, as we look at it, there's still a lot of remediation going on to the renovations that they did for poor construction things. We have leaks in windows, leaks in decking that's out there that overflows into the building. So, I mean, there's some things, so we're looking at, they just did a rehab in our place, but they're gonna build a whole thing there, and what's gonna happen? You know? It's just a lot. It's a lot. We think the church needs a rehab, a fixer-up, but this is like putting the hotel on when you're playing Monopoly. You get the hotel next to all the nice little houses. Like you said, nice little neighborhood. I mean, it just doesn't fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this application? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Kathy Daly, hi. I had a
Could
couple,
you just provide your address as well?
10 Dunbarton Road.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions. How many crosses are gonna go up on this, one or two? I think there was some back and forth. What is it?
Okay. Well, I'll have the applicant answer after.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And about how many apartments? Is it 2 or 3? Okay. And then next, about the deliveries, what is all this delivery? I'm not sure what we're delivering. Is this all food? Food deliveries that everyone's talking about? Because I know meals are being served. So is this like some type of a restaurant?
It's not a restaurant, no. But
Okay.
I'll have the applicant address the use.
Okay, I just didn't know if that had to be licensed separately or something. If we're gonna be doing food in and out and trash for the food pickups and whatnot. And other than that, I know I've been in the church. It's in tough shape, there's no question. I know it does need renovations, but I've been coming to most all the meetings, and I'm just gonna say it again, you're not remodeling a church, you're building a community center and calling it a church. That's all, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Tony Rubino. I live on Ellington Road also, and I just want to echo what some of the other speakers have said. This is just way too big a project for a residential neighborhood. There's going to be too much noise, especially if they're starting at 7 in the morning. And the deconstruction of the existing church is going to be a nightmare for the residents, as well as the building of the new building. It's not a commercial area. It's a commercial property that's going in there. It's just too big an undertaking for a side street in Quincy. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
Hello, good evening. I live at 5 Ellington Road, which is directly across the street from this project. I don't really have much in the way to
Excuse
add.
me, sir. Could you just provide your name for the record? as well?
Max Rousseau.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, so I'm a homeowner there and don't really have much in terms of new points to add to what everybody else has said, but I just want to go on record that I am concerned about the size of this project for pretty much all the same reasons that were mentioned before me, you know. I do agree that, it's an old church, should be renovated, but, adding apartments, adding all these other, attachments to this seems like a major project for a residential area. I'm very concerned about, the timeline, the tear down, asbestos, other contaminants getting into, other properties and everything. I have a roommate that, definitely is also very concerned. He, has breathing issues, so, he's quite concerned about, a project like this and what could be released into the air. So I really, would like to voice that concern and hope that some answers are given for all of that.
Great, thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this? Okay, seeing none. Attorney Fleming, do you want to come up and address some of those questions? I did write down how many crosses. I think, the reference was to apartments, but I think it's not technically apartments, deliveries, and then the nature of the tear down was what I had.
Sure. So with regard to the apartments, there was a lot of reference to the apartments. This is a church and a social service community center. It's exactly like the church is operated today. The church provides social services, and it provides obviously religious faith services. The three apartments that are located on the top level of the building are actually for the pastor, because the pastor's home in the rear of the site is being taken down. So it's for the pastor and for visiting pastors. It will not be rented out separately. It's just private use by the church and by the social service center. There won't be any deliveries really made to and from the site. In fact, we had indicated in an earlier meeting that we expect very, very few deliveries to the site. And we actually provided through the traffic engineering report, and there was a traffic study and a traffic engineering report provided by our private traffic engineering professional to the city's traffic professional, who reviewed it and was comfortable with the proposal as it sits today. The city's traffic engineer, and you can certainly reference her letter if necessary, indicated that she did not believe that this was going to create a large volume of traffic to and from the site or concerns about parking. There's sufficient parking on Hancock Street to provide parking for this facility. The deliveries to and from the site have been designated in a delivery space on Hancock Street. Ellington Road will not be utilized for any deliveries. I think you, Madam Chair, raised a concern about delivery vehicles backing out into Ellington. So we actually designated a spot on Hancock Street for any deliveries. As far as the number of crosses goes, I'm not sure if there's 2 crosses on the church. There's 2 crosses on the church and 3 apartments, but as I said, those apartments are being utilized by the church. This is a significantly smaller proposal than was initially made. If you remember, this building was a squared off building that was going to take up the entire parcel. A large section of it that was 5 stories in height was actually removed from the parcel, and this was downsized dramatically. In reference to the concerns raised by the neighbors and certainly the neighbors on Ellington Road. We anticipate that many of the folks that are utilizing the church and the social services center are folks that live within the community, many of whom walk, many of whom take shuttle services, and many of whom actually walk from the Fenno House itself through the tunnel that's connected to the building. This now is a completely handicap accessible building, and some of the reasons for the extent of the changes is the handicap accessibility and the nature of those requirements. The basement, as it's been used over the last number of years, is no longer available for use because it's not handicap accessible, so they had to utilize space on the levels above. The church actually takes up 2 levels of the building, a majority of the 2 levels of the building. So there's only, even though it's a 5-story building, those other levels are, there's really just a third, 4th, and 5th level, and the 5th level is those apartment units in the chapel. So we're comfortable that this is not going to have the impact that the folks in the neighborhood are concerned about. With regard to issues related to construction, there is a construction management plan that will be required of the applicant to detail how construction vehicles will come to and from the site, how deliveries will be made to the site, and the fact that we removed that large section of building, which is now going to be an open parking lot, that actually provides a great area on which a lot of staging can be done for the development so that it will not impact the streets. And any impact to the streets will be managed through the construction management plan. I just want to raise, and I know the planning department will raise this as well, there will also be conditions related to an abatement of any asbestos. There will be conditions related to any noise disruption, and there's certain hours of operation when construction can occur, and there's also regulations regarding dust control. So this has to be managed, those issues have to be managed during construction, and we're confident that all those conditions will be implemented within any decision that this board raises, but certainly that the city's inspectional services department will require. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any questions?
Madam Chair, if I may, just one
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
You know, I gotta say, it's a much better project than it was in the first round. You guys, you know, you're in a neighborhood, you're in the city of Quincy. When you're choosing a contractor, please choose a contractor that you can hire men and women of the city of Quincy, from Rhode Island and New Hampshire.
Okay, so I would agree with what you're saying, how it's much smaller than the original proposal. I guess one of my questions I would have for you, Council, with all due respect, so is this a community center, or is this a social service center? Or you tell me what the difference is between a community center and a social service center.
Tim, do you want to address that?
Hi, I'm Tim Wismar, 32 Piermont Street. I'm the president of the congregation at Wallaston Lutheran Church. Generally, we're continuing the same activities that we do there now. In the morning, seniors from the neighborhood come in and they do like ping pong and exercises in the morning, and they take English classes, maybe citizenship classes, that type of thing. They sometimes bring food and they prepare their own meals in the kitchen to share with other members from the community. So it's kind of like a meeting place for elders in the community.
So
with some activities.
I respect it completely, and I'm kind of hearing what the neighbors are saying too, and I understand that it's a great center, and a lot of people walk there. Now, if I lived on Ellington Street, I'd be right up here too saying, okay, you guys are gonna fix up the church, that's awesome, it needs renovation. It's much smaller than it was, that's awesome. But they have concerns to say, okay, when you're doing the construction, I know you have to put together a CMP and present it to somebody else, and maybe not perhaps to this board, but maybe it probably wouldn't be such a bad idea to say it in front of the public now, what is your CMP? And let the people know a little bit ahead of time. Because if you're living on that street and there's gonna be a lot of construction, demolition, how long is it gonna take to construct this project from start to finish? Are we talking 12 months, 14 months, 16 months? I mean, is anybody saying how long this will take?
I'm more on the church side than on the construction side.
Okay.
But we certainly have people here that maybe can talk about that, maybe Jim Edwards or.
So I don't want you to misunderstand me. I'm not against what you're trying to do here. But I think as a concerned person that lives in the area, they have great concerns here to say, hold on a little bit here. We need some more information. Because it sounds like they want the church to be renovated. Who wouldn't want a church to be renovated, right? And besides, there's not much you can do about a church when it wants to renovate because it's a church. It's like, how do you stop a church from renovating? It's like, they should do that. But maybe we just should inform the people a little bit more as to duration. How often do you have trucks delivering, and what are you delivering? Do you have an actual kitchen that works every day?
We don't have any really deliveries. What happens is people bring in food from restaurants sometimes, and we have little activities, 20, 30 people. It's not.
So it's not a set schedule like every other day we're gonna have breakfast for for the members of the community. We're gonna have lunch 3 times a week for the
What?
community, so that people can understand that there may be like a scheduled lunch 3 times a week there.
Okay. Why don't we bring up Joyce Guan, the director of our programming
Sure.
for the seniors, and maybe she can talk a little bit about that, if that's okay.
Hi, I'm Joyce Guan, 56 George Road, Quincy, and I'm the director from the Wollaston Senior Center, which is located at the basement of the Wollaston Lutheran Church right now. So we are basically a senior community center that serves the Asian seniors over 29 years now, and we have over 2,000 duplicate members that will use our facility. But on a daily basis, we have around 30 to 40 members coming. It's a welcoming place for them. They don't speak English. It's a new home for them. They meet their new friends. We do a lot of direct social services, like help them apply for public housing, teach them, basic English conversation classes. And we also have a congregation meal that provided by social elder services. And those meals are catered. They provided from the Greater Boston Chinese Golden Age Center from Chinatown, from Boston Chinatown. So we don't have daily regular meal delivery or trucks whatsoever that come to the center. And we have our special events, but most are like pork lot style. So elders like to cook and they like to eat. So they always bring their own food and share with the members at our site. So basically, we don't have any like delivery trucks or whatsoever delivers on a regular daily basis for now. At least I've been there over 22 years, and I'm sure I can answer that question correctly.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask the Attorney Fleming one question? I forgot, the last time you guys were up here, we were talking about a deck outside, up a couple levels, and I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And now after listening to one of the tenants of the Fennel House, and how it might be right outside their windows and it's relatively close to where they're living and so forth, was there any type of sound attenuation that was gonna go on that rooftop area, do you remember?
Yeah, we talked about the activities that will take place up there, and they'll be for air, for the elders to get out, to be able to walk around, to do Tai Chi, to do their exercises. It's not gonna be utilized for any loud types of activities. In fact, our hope is, quite frankly, is a lot of the Fennel House folks will actually take advantage of the programs that will be available at the center. The other thing that we did, if you remember from the earlier proposal, is there was a large gymnasium, and there were concerns raised about the fact that there would be basketball games and things of that nature, and that was changed entirely. And we changed that now to a community room, just to allow the elders to have a space that they could do their yoga, their Tai Chi, the activities that most of the Asian community enjoys doing. I'm not sure if there's any sound attenuation up there. Is there, Jim?
There's a glass wall. My name is Jim Edwards with Homestead Edwards Architects. There's a certain height wall, and then there's glass above it to allow people a view. And but it's also, it does have the potential, at least, I mean, we could do a sound attenuation, we could do a sound study on it, but I agree with Attorney Fleming that this is not, I mean, they're not gonna be playing games up there or anything.
I appreciate it, and I'm glad you refreshed my memory on that. Now that you say that, I recall you saying that we're gonna be doing quiet stuff, and I get it,
And with regard to the construction management plan, and I certainly understand and want to make sure that the neighbors are very familiar with it, but we can agree that as a construction management plan is prepared, that we share that with the city councilor, and that we share that with the community, so that the community knows not only who to contact regarding construction activities, which we want to make sure they have a contact person, but also a detailed schedule of things like major deliveries of equipment, staging, and things of that nature, so that we'll work with the community. We understand we don't want to be a disruption to Ellington. There's certainly going to be every effort taken to make sure that there's as little disruption as we possibly can, but we can agree to share that information as it becomes available.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, all right, so I think we've heard from everybody in the public. Attorney Fleming, if you could just touch very briefly, just because I think it's important. So this is a church, it's protected use under the Dover Amendment. Could you just touch on that? Because I think you just need relief from this planning board, I would assume. I don't think you need anything from the zoning board, but I could be wrong.
That's
about
right,
that.
that's
Yeah.
right. As the chair knows, as the board knows, 48 Section 3 of the Massachusetts General Laws allows for exceptions from zoning for churches and educational institutions. What's being proposed today is exactly that, a church and an educational institution, because the other programs that are provided within this church are educational in nature. As you just heard from the director, a lot of there's issues related to citizenship, there's issues to language, and other educational aspects. Because of those provisions, zoning board of appeals relief is not needed. So the only thing that, and as this board may be aware, in a number of years ago, the city, because 40A Section 3 allows a city or town to implement site plan review for these types of matters, the city of Quincy decided to put this in place. In the old days, this kind of an application could have been made without any kind of zoning relief, without any kind of public hearings. But the city put into effect site plan review to review all matters related to 48 Section 3. I was involved. The director of the department was involved in a matter that actually triggered that, when a school was sought in a neighborhood, and the city didn't have any controls at that time. So this opportunity for the neighbors to be heard is actually a benefit that was created by the city council.
Thank you, appreciate that. Does everybody have enough information to close the public hearing at this point? No? Yeah. Okay, so is there a motion to close?
Make a motion to close?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And does the department have a recommendation?
Yes, Madam Chair, the department does, through you to the board, after consideration of the site plan, accompanying documents, the comments received from city staff, and the peer review consultant, the department recommends the board approve site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review and special permit under Section 5.1.17, parking waivers subject to the below listed special and general conditions. Special conditions number 1. The applicant shall submit a construction management plan to be filed and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. This shall include the locations of stockpile and/or staging areas for construction equipment and materials. The applicant shall also address construction period traffic impacts by providing a detailed sequence of construction and addressing any space constraints and detailing how they'll be addressed as construction progresses. 2, the applicant shall reconstruct the sidewalk along the entire property frontage of Hancock Street and Ellington Street with cement, concrete, broom finish with mortar and tool joints, and granite curb as specified by the Department of Public Works. 3, the applicant shall perform soil tests during construction to verify the underlying soil conditions. Any modifications to the stormwater management system due to differing soil conditions shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for review and approval. 4, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall perform a water flow test with the city's water department. 5, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing sewer main and manholes shall be inspected with television pre-development in order to check the condition of the system. The proposed sewer service pipe and the connection to the main shall be inspected with the television post-development. Television reports shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for assessment. 6, 1 week prior to any land disturbance activities, the applicant shall conduct an on-site inspection with the Department of Public Works and/or the city's designated representative to observe the erosion controls installed at the site and review the erosion controls to be employed during construction. 7, the Department of Public Works and the city's designated representative shall observe the construction of the stormwater management system at the following times: upon completion of excavation, upon completion of chamber and crushed stone installation, and prior to backfill. The applicant shall provide at least 72 hours notice of said inspections. 8, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall submit and record at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds an operation and maintenance plan for the project stormwater system, which shall include the following: stormwater management system owners, a plan showing location of all stormwater BMPs, an operation and maintenance log for which includes all maintenance facilities and frequency of inspections, maintenance of landscape area and snow management. The entire proposed stormwater and sewer system shall be cleaned and flushed prior to its final acceptance. 10, the applicant shall conduct a pre-demolition asbestos survey for any existing structures to be demolished. If there are any asbestos-containing materials present, they must be removed by the licensed contractor, and a post-abatement inspection must be performed by a DLI-certified project monitor. Walkthrough inspection conducted by the Quincy Health Department is required prior to demolition. 11, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for construction-related noise-generating activities to comply with local and state regulations. 12, the applicant shall submit a written rodent control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said plan must be designed for the duration of the project and include at minimum the following: name and contact information of a licensed pest control operator to be retained by the project proponent for the duration of the project, scope of the proposed plan for the control of rodents, including number, location, and monitoring frequency of bait stations, as well as the anticipated length of service. Special condition 13, the applicant shall develop and submit a written dust control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said dust control plan is to be implemented during any site activities to ensure compliance with state air quality regulations. The applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy tree ordinance. The applicant shall submit an AutoCAD file for the project prior to the issuance of a building permit. File should be in Mass State Plane Coordinate System and preferably in Quincy Standard Data Layers. 16, upon completion of construction, the applicant shall submit a report including certified as-built plan from a professional engineer or surveyor certifying that the stormwater management system has been constructed in accordance with the approved plans. The report should include a certification that the excavations of the proposed system were inspected prior to backfilling. The applicant shall also provide the city engineer the digital file as-built plan showing all utilities, building footprints, reference bounds, and benchmarks defining the total site, facilities, and rights-of-way along with an AutoCAD file. The as-built plans shall be in Mass State Plane Coordinate System. The plan should be stamped and signed by a professional land surveyor or professional engineer. 17, upon completion of the project, the applicant shall submit a stamped affidavit from a registered professional engineer that all utilities, water, sewer, and drain are constructed as designed and no illicit connections are found on the completed project site. That would conclude the department's recommendation.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or discussion? Is there a motion to approve consistent with the department's recommendation?
Make a motion that we approve the 17 special conditions as read by Mr. Stevens, and approve the project.
Is there a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, so that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your patience as we work through this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got a question.
Oh. Okay. I guess we'll take a 5-minute break.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Good luck with that.
All right, so we're back on, and the next item on the agenda is the continued public hearing, 42 Lion Street, Planning Board Case Number 2025-03. Attorney Fleming.
Hey, long time no see.
Hey, hi, is that who you are?
Again, Edward Fleming, Edward Fleming, for the applicant, Stephen Bayless, who's the trustee of 81 Faxon Park Road Realty Trust. As you know, Madam Chair and members of the board, this is a continued hearing from the February 19th hearing date. Number of concerns were raised by the community during that initial hearing. Among those concerns were issues related to the height of the proposed homes, the concern about the retaining wall that was located in the back of the site, and there was some requests for fencing around the site to provide that additional buffer. Other questions and comments were also made. We actually had a really nice conversation with a lot of the neighbors right after the meeting. They again expressed their concerns about primarily the height of the buildings, and as a result of that, Brian Donahue made some significant architectural changes that he would like to have him share in a moment. In addition to that, we had outstanding comments that hadn't been responded to on peer review. And Jim Burke spent significant time responding to those peer review comments. We can have both Jim and Brian highlight those changes. I'll leave it to the board whether or not you want to hear any civil-related changes. But those civil-related changes really were to address the peer review outstanding comments. But Jim's certainly here to talk about the drainage changes. But first, I'd like to just turn this over to Brian. Let Brian walk through the plans. Steve Bayless, through Councilor Devine, had an opportunity to meet with the neighbors yesterday. Had a really nice meeting with the neighbors, was able to share all these changes with the neighbors. And I'm not sure if any of the neighbors are here tonight, but the word was from both Councilor and by Mr. Bayless is that the neighbors were quite pleased with the changes that had been made. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, thanks, Ed.
Mr. Donahue?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Brian Donahue again, Donahue Architects, McGrath Highway in Quincy. I'll try and keep this brief because the changes, although significant, I think are actually what we were hearing from the neighbors. So we tried to respond to those and make significant changes to the building massing, the height, and so forth. So this cover sheet just shows an aerial perspective of the three homes that are on the site. We are still maintaining a two-car garage with each home, a driveway in front for visitor parking or overflow parking. The same basic location of the homes on site. The original plan had a much smaller footprint. It was about 780 square feet. These are about 1,100 square feet. So although the footprint is increased, the square footage of the actual home is the same. It's just under 2,000 square feet. The site plan, we also remember some comments from folks who were saying, well, where is this driveway in relation to mine? And I think the site plan, the locus plan on the bottom shows that the driveway in the middle is across the street from the neighbor's driveway as well. So we have basically the same drive entry onto the site, a 22-foot driveway that brings you into three different homes. As you can see, the footprint has increased. What we've done in lieu of having just a bonus space or an office space on the ground level, we've put all the major living space on the first floor, like more of a traditional house layout, as opposed to a townhouse, which is really kind of what we had before, individual townhouses. So as you can see, there's basically two building types. The left and the right building have a smaller extension and living space in the front. The building in the back has a larger living room towards the end. A couple of the homes, the one on the left side has an outdoor patio because that part of the site is relatively flat. And as the site drops off in the back, we have a stair down to a backyard area for the middle home. And off the right-hand home, we have a deck off the dining space. This gets into the detail of the layouts. Again, two-car garage, access to the second floor, living, kitchen, dining, and 3 bedrooms above. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. And again, we've kept the same color scheme as we had on the other plans, so we have basically gone from 3 stories, 3 full stories, to 1.5 stories. There is one diagram here that really shows the difference. So, although it's only an 8-foot difference from ridge heights, it appears to be a lot more, but that's really, it's gone from basically 35 feet to 28. And these renderings depict the relationship to the buildings. It's snug, but these are small cottages of less than 2,000 square feet, so we think it's a good fit. And that's basically the changes that we've made.
Did you want to talk about the removal? Yeah, sure. So, Jim, why don't you just highlight it?
Okay, oh, there we go. Good evening, Jim Burke with DeSalle Burke Sala. Officers here in Quincy. With changes to the layout, obviously there's going to be changes to site grading, location utilities and the like. The site grading, we ended up doing walkouts for 2 of the units and actually provided some, removed that wall that went in the back and that brought the grade up. We kind of fit into the existing grading a lot better with this particular layout. What it does do is it creates additional roof runoff, so we had to expand the on-site stormwater control, had to relocate some utilities, we had to build out the stormwater a little bit extra to handle the additional roof, but we fit it in, and it fell together pretty good. So, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I guess I just have, could you just
Sure.
expand upon, because before I think you were putting a wall in the back, and so now
Sure.
you're changing the grade totally, where you're eliminating the need for the wall? I'm just
So
not
before,
understanding.
we had a retaining wall that kind of looped
Yep.
around the back like that, and that allowed this area to be kind of flattened out. Now, we're kind of using this wall of this, the garage, to grade this down and create the flat spot here. So it gives this, so that allowed it to build this into the hill, and then this comes around anyway naturally, so that grade's almost the same. And we just walk out, that's a natural walkout, there's no grade going on there at all. So it's just kind of, we utilized the on-site grades a little bit more efficiently with the walkout design.
Thank you, that's helpful. Yeah, thank you. Let me see if anybody
Anything
has questions. Any questions?
No.
Any questions?
No.
No?
The only
Okay.
thing
Yeah.
So the cupola's washed out, huh? I was voting for the cupola, so that's all I have. Matt.
Okay, thank you. So this is a public hearing, so if you'd like to speak on this application, please, yes, sir. And while you make your way up, I'll remind folks that you can sign in on the sign-in sheets on the side near the window too.
Hi, Ron Petnelli, I live at 9 Hopedale Street. My wife and I would live in like the bottom right quadrant of the property, at the back. Speak for Diana and myself, one thing we're happy about is they really respected our concern about keeping the fabric of the neighborhood. I know it's only lowered down 7 feet, so that he said, but that's a huge when you're thinking about angles of view. So we really appreciated that last night. And especially listening to our concerns for privacy, because there were decks on the 2 houses on the right and in the back that would have been able to look over the fence at us and watching me sunbathe. They wouldn't go out on that deck more than once, trust me. And the last one is, there are some massive oak trees, over 60 feet tall, that are there. And so we have a concern that I think is going to fall on probably you guys, inspectional services or something, that if they're not removed, digging the foundations for those 2 houses on the right and in the back, it's going to destroy the integrity of the root system, and that just leaves those 60-somewhat foot oak trees leaning towards us on any big windstorm. As now, we are terrorized every time it gets windy, because the back of our house is right there. So that's just something we leave for you guys. But again, much appreciation for Bayless and for listening to us, and especially that meeting right after, and then last night, him explaining to us, especially like the stormwater runoff. I had no idea how that was gonna happen, and he told us last night how they were gonna bring it off to the front.
Right.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this application? And yes, ma'am. Oh. You can go, yeah.
Hi, my name is Lisa Johnson. I live at 51 Lion Street. I also want to emphasize what Mr. Pettinelli says. I appreciate the board and for the developer and everybody for listening to us and lowering the height of the houses. I appreciate our city councilor also for setting up the meeting last night. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
This design is much better. Thank
Great.
you.
Did you want the cupolas or no? Put her down for no.
Hi.
Joan Falvey, 45 Lion Street. I'm right across from the blue square on the left. And I just wanted to thank the board and also the developers for listening to the neighbors. And I think what they are bringing forward is something more in sync with the neighborhood and fits in a lot better. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I guess last call, it's a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak on this application? Yep, sir.
Lorenzo Scarnisi, 41 Lion Street. I'm directly across. And I just want to say that everything, we had a public meeting, we had a meeting at for the neighborhood yesterday. And I like the design. I'm definitely for the project.
Great, thank you. And anyone else? Counselor Devine, rising. Oh, you were, no.
Good evening, members of the Planning Council Committee. I just wanted to say kind of the same thing. Thank you very much to the neighborhood, the neighbors, the builder, the developer. Everybody worked together. It should be like this more often, where it doesn't have to be that difficult. Everybody worked together, talked about their concerns, and it went really well. And I think both parties are happy with it. And thank you for all your ears and listening and all you do. I really do appreciate it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other comment before we move to close?
Can I say one thing?
Yes, yeah.
While we're here on that vein, and it's nice to hear you coming up and saying that, and you're so appreciative. That feels really good, at least for me. I don't do this that often, so. But while we're here, and you don't have to do a phone call tomorrow, the trees that are threatening your property, are they on your property or are they on the developer's property?
They're on the developers. They're probably on, there's one like in the middle of about 15 feet away from our property line, in the middle of the picture, and then another one that would be closer to where the houses come together.
So while we're here and we have the developer here, what say ye on the trees? Would you be willing to take down the trees for the neighbors, or what's the thought on that?
Sure, we'll certainly work with the neighbors about any concern about the trees. Yeah, so Steve will have a continued conversation with the neighbors and work with them, absolutely.
Thank you.
We don't want to affect the integrity of the trees.
Thank you.
All right?
Counselor Devine?
Sorry, I forgot. One other thing too, and sometimes, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I wanted to make it publicly noted that when you have a rendering and pictures, they want to make sure, that they stay the same. So I know that's the rule and everything, but sometimes at the end of the project, it's not done. So if it isn't, it will be brought up, just a FYI. Thank you.
can we close the public hearing? Is there a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I will just echo very quickly before we get the department's recommendation. So I've been on a zoning board in Falmouth for 4 years. I've been on this board now for a number of years. And to echo what Councilor Devine said, I have never seen the public hearing process, really work so well. I think it's really a testament that everybody came tonight to say positive things as well. I think that's wonderful that the neighborhood came out to support this project after meeting with the developer. We appreciate it because, we heard, negative comments last time about the height, but I will say as soon as I saw the changes to the project plan, just personally, I said, wow, that's a significant change. And it's so nice that folks came out, not just to say negative things, at the last hearing and express your concerns, which is legitimate. That's what this public hearing process is for, but also to say really positive things and come out and take the time to come out and support the project as well after your concerns were addressed. And so I know that I really appreciate it, and I know the whole board does. So thank you for that. It was a great process, I would say. So, and does the department have a recommendation?
Yes, we do. Through you, Madam Chair, to the rest of the board, after consideration of the site plan accompanying documents, comments received from the city staff, department recommends the board approve site plan review under Title 17, Section 9.5.1, and special site plan review and special permit under 5.1.17 parking waiver, subject to the below listed special and general conditions. Number one, the applicant shall obtain all necessary variances and, if applicable, special permits from the the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. Two, the applicant shall perform soil tests during construction to verify the underlying soil conditions. Any modifications to the stormwater management system due to differing soil conditions shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for review and approval. Three, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan to be filed and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. This shall include locations of stockpile and/or staging areas for construction equipment and materials. The applicant shall also address construction period traffic impacts by providing a detailed sequence of construction and addressing any space constraints and detailing how they'll be addressed as construction progresses. 4, 1 week prior to any land disturbance activities, the applicant shall conduct on-site inspection with the Department of Public Works or the city's designated representative to observe erosion controls installed at the site and review the erosion controls anticipated to be employed during construction. 5, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing sewer main and manholes shall be inspected with television pre-development in order to check the condition of the system. The proposed sewer service, pipe, and connection to the main shall be inspected with television post-development. Television reports shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for assessment. 6, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall submit and record at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds an operation and maintenance plan for the project stormwater system, which shall include the following: stormwater management system and system owners and/or maintenance responsibilities of the homeowners association, a plan showing snow storage area and the location of all stormwater BMPs in each treatment train along with discharge points, and winter salt and sand use restrictions, if any. 7, the Department of Public Works and/or city's designated representative shall observe the construction of the stormwater management system at the following times: upon completion of excavation, upon completion of chamber and crushed stone installation, and prior to backfill. The applicant shall provide at least 72 hours notice of said inspections. 8, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for the project-related noise-generating activities to comply with local and state regulations. 9, the applicant shall submit a written rodent control plan to the Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said plan must be designed for the duration of the project and include at minimum the following: name and contact information of a licensed pest control operator to be retained by the project proponent for the duration of the project. Scope of the proposed plan for control of rodents, including number, location, and frequency of monitoring bait stations and anticipated length of service. C, summary of actions to be taken to prevent rodent problems at the construction site. Number 10, the applicant shall develop and submit a written dust control plan to the Department of Health for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said dust control plan is to be implemented during any site activities to ensure compliance with state air quality regulations. 11, the applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy tree ordinance. 12, an illicit discharge compliance statement shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works prior to the discharge of any stormwater to post-construction BMPs. 13, the applicant shall submit an AutoCAD file for the project prior to the issuance of a building permit. The file should be in Mass State Plane Coordinate System and preferably in Quincy Standard Data Layers. 14, upon completion of construction, the applicant shall submit a report including certified as-built plan from a professional engineer or surveyor, certifying that the stormwater management system has been constructed in accordance with the approved plans. The report should include a certification that the excavations of the proposed system were inspected prior to backfilling. Applicant shall also provide to the city engineer the digital file as-built plans showing all utilities, building footprints, reference bounds, and benchmarks defining the total site, facilities, and rights-of-way, along with an AutoCAD file. The as-built plan should be in Mass State Plane Coordinate System. Plan should be stamped and signed by a professional land surveyor or professional engineer. 15, upon completion of the project, the applicant shall submit a stamped affidavit from a registered professional engineer that all the utilities, water, sewer, and drain are constructed as designed and no illicit connections are found on the completed project site. That would conclude the department's recommendation.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve consistent with the department's recommendation?
Motion to approve the 15 special conditions read by Mr. Stevens.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank everybody for coming.
Thank you.
When it's all done, you should have a clock back.
All right, next, we already addressed the continued public hearing for 45 Station Street, in case you arrived late. That application was withdrawn without prejudice. That happened earlier tonight.
90 School Street.
And the next was 90 School Street, and that matter was continued to the June 25th hearing. So those two matters have already been addressed. 506 South Street was held earlier this evening. That has been continued as well. And so that leaves us to a new public hearing on 21 Weston Avenue, Planning Board Case Number 2025-09. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the application of SDG Development, 800 Hartford Turnpike, Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. It's supposed to be 01545 for special permits under Title 17, Sections 3.1.3, Major Non-Residential Use, and 5.1.17, Parking Waiver. The applicant proposes to construct a new 6-story, 76,424 square foot storage facility with loading area and parking for 12 vehicles on the exterior parking. This proposed facility will be in addition to the existing storage facility on the parcel. The proposal will also include professionally designed drainage controls and landscaping. The property contains 54,378 square feet of land and is located at 21 Weston Avenue. The subject property is located within an Industrial B Business C zoning district and shown on Assessor's Map 5101, Lot 15, Plot A1. Attorney Fleming.
Last one, and now you get rid
Hey,
of
you're
it.
earning your money tonight.
Countrywide search.
Again, Madam Chair, members of the board, Edward Fleming here on behalf of the owner, Extra Space Storage, and the applicant, SSG Development. I'm joined tonight by Dave Williams from SSG Development, Kristen Robbins from BL Companies, who is the architect on this proposal and will share the architectural plans. Mike Dryden, who is our civil engineer from Allen Engineering, and Mike will talk about the civil related matters, and then Kirsten Braun, who is our traffic engineer, who will make her presentation relative to traffic on this proposal. Just a little background, this is a 54,378 square foot parcel of land. It is actually located in an Industrial B and Business C zoning district. The existing building that's on the site today is in the Industrial B zoning district, while this new structure is going to be constructed in the Business C zoning district. Each of those uses allow for self-storage facilities. They also allow for a variety of other uses, as the board may be aware. Multifamily residential use is allowed in this Business C zoning district, retail, restaurant, and other types of business type uses. So We believe that this use is actually far less intrusive in this community because of its location on the train tracks. This proposal complies with all of the dimensional requirements of the Business C zoning district relative to setbacks that are being provided here, FAR, and other provisions as well. What we're here before this board seeking is a special permit for a commercial use of more than 10,000 square feet, which is this is a project that includes a development of a 76,000 square foot building. So therefore, a special permit is required of this body. And also, we're seeking a special permit parking waiver to address parking related to this storage facility. And we can talk about parking in detail because this is, as this board may have entertained itself, but certainly the planning boards have entertained in the city of Quincy a number of different storage facilities, both extra space and others. I actually, and Dave Williams, worked on a storage facility on Liberty Street a number of years ago where the BJ's gas station is located now out in front. And we dealt with issues related to not only dimensional and those provisions, but also relative to traffic and parking. I did another storage facility on Washington Street going closer to the bridge. So the board's actually seen these proposals a number of times before. The proposal that we're sharing with you tonight, and I'll allow the professionals to get into the details, is a 76,424 square foot storage facility on the paved parking lot that sits next to the existing brick building. The existing brick building, which is also an extra space storage facility, is about 46,000 square feet in total size. So these will be operated as separate structures, but as similar uses. They'll also have the ability to share parking in other facilities as well. The total between the existing building and this new building will be about 122,692 square feet of storage area. That size is actually very comparable to what was done on Liberty Street and what was done on Washington Street. So the parking ratios can kind of be analyzed in conjunction with those proposals as well. The new structure will be 6 stories in height, taller than the existing structure that sits on the site now. But within the zoning district of Business C, which allows a 6-story structure. And 12 parking spaces will be provided for this new storage facility, as well as to be shared with the other storage facility, along with 3 loading bays. And the front and the setbacks are shown on the plans in more detail. We think that this proposal actually will be, as I said, far less impact than what other Business C developments could inflict upon this neighborhood. It will eliminate the truck storage and the boat storage and the miscellaneous storage that's on the site now. Right now, that parking lot wasn't used for parking for the facility. It was used to store vehicles, boats, trailers, and other things. So it was that open lot storage, which wasn't particularly attractive for that community. Now all the storage will be within the facility, and it won't be that type of storage. It will be for household storage for individual users. The proposal, as I said, is like other similar storage facilities, which we could talk about in more detail. We think that this new storage facility, as it sits along the train tracks also, will provide a buffer for the residential community in the back. It will buffer the noise of the trains in that area and actually be a benefit, we think, to some of those folks. We had an opportunity to meet with the child care facility, which is right next door to the site. It's actually owned by the Wollaston Lutheran Church, and Tim Wesmar and I and Dave met and had a good meeting. And Tim actually called me the other day to indicate to me that he was supportive of the proposal. In fact, what he did request, however, and this is kind of an unusual request we can talk about, is he wanted the lighting on our building to actually provide lighting on his parking lot and his playground. So that's something we can discuss and maybe and work together to help provide him with that. His concern was sometimes there are vagrants, homeless, that sleep in those facilities or that area of his property, and he wants to be able to keep it clear by providing lighting on that playground area. So we'll talk about that in more detail. So with that, I'd like to turn this over first to Kristen, let Kristen walk through, or actually, we have the site plans up. So Mike, you want to just walk through? Yeah, so you can walk through the site. Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Michael Dryden. I'm a senior project manager with Allen Engineering. Our firm is responsible in this case for topographic and boundary survey, the civil engineering, as well as the landscape architecture that we're going to walk you through this evening. I just want to spend a few minutes just to walk you through the existing site conditions, orient you, and give you some of the stats. So this is the overall property. And Attorney Fleming did a nice job to give you some of the stats. I'll try to minimize my redundancy here. The site is about 1.25 acres. As was mentioned, it's a split zone. The left side, or we'll call it the north side of the property, is within the Industrial B zoning district. The right side or south is within the Business C district. You'll see the existing building there. It's the Hatch building, probably a little difficult to see here, but it's the large Hatch footprint. It's a 3-story building, 46,000 square feet. As mentioned, there are 34 paved parking spaces on the right side of the site. That is the subject area that we'll be discussing this evening. Just to talk about some of the surrounding uses, to the extreme right of the page is the Wollaston Child Care Facility that was just mentioned, going clockwise around the property. The MBTA red line along the bottom, of course. Linden Street on the left side to the north. On the opposite side of Linden Street is a parking structure that you see there. Continuing clockwise is a condo development that's in one of the old brick buildings. Adjacent to Chester Street, there's a single-family residential building. And then finally, the Chinese Baptist Church on the upper right. And of course, Weston Avenue is across the top of the site. So the work area, I'm going to just zoom in on the right side of the site. Again, in the Business C district, you see the 34 parking spaces there. This area represents about roughly half of the overall site. It's about 0.55 acres that we're talking about in terms of the impact area. The 34 parking spaces that you see are accessed via a single curb cut. You can see that it's generally across from Chester Street. Not much else to report on the existing site. It's a paved parking area. It's relatively flat. You can see there is some grade change. Pretty deceiving, actually, in the field. It feels very flat, but there's about, in terms of the development, about 3 feet of grade change that we need to deal with, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Again, along the bottom of the page is the MBTA property, and you'll see that bold black line. There's a retaining wall there. I think there is a typo on one of the elevations, but to the right, you'll see BWTW. That wall at its highest point is about 8 feet, and I just wanted to point that out. That wall we will not be touching. We're also subject to a 30-foot zone of influence from the MBTA property. We're well aware of that. We've already been discussing with MBTA. What I want to spend a moment on is the drainage system that exists here today. It's pretty unique. There's a dashed line that you can see inside of that parking area, and it's labeled subsurface infiltration system, if you can see that. It's a very sizable infiltration system. It's 160 feet by almost 100 feet. And we were provided an as-built plan dated 1998 from the engineering department. Initially, when we did our due diligence and did our survey, we didn't even know this system existed. But we found that vault that you see in the middle, that small rectangular structure, and that raised some red flags. So we did a little research and we located an as-built plan. I'm not sure exactly when. The as-built plan was dated 98. I'm not sure why this system was built in the fashion that it is. It's a very big system. We estimate that it provides about 20,000 cubic feet of storage, which equates to about 150,000 gallons of water. It takes roof runoff from the existing building. It also takes all the pavement area runoff via a couple of catch basins. It's piped into that vault, which provides some removal of floatables, grit chamber, things of that nature, oil gas removal, and then it's released into the subsurface system. That system is fairly deep in terms of its cover. They're plastic chambers, pretty common. You see them all the time. Because of the shallowness or the shallow height of those structures, I should say, there's no way to get overflow off of the site. So in this situation, you'll see along Weston Avenue, there's a circle labeled pump station. So the way this vault works is when that system becomes inundated, if you have a series of, significant storm events, that pump station will fill up and float switches will kick on and it gets pumped right into the Weston Avenue drainage system. We, on several occasions, opened that pump station after significant rainfall events and didn't find any water whatsoever in that pump station. So that tells us that this infiltration system is doing its job. We do know that the soil conditions vary significantly on this project site. On the south or the right side, the soils are very poor, and as you move closer to the north to the existing building, the soils improve dramatically. And that'll be important when we get into the proposed development. So, any questions about the existing site? We'll move along. This is just a demolition plan, not much to talk about here, removal of existing pavement, existing drainage structures. This slide just shows you the proposed building and parking configuration as it relates to the existing building. Its juxtaposition to the existing building. So I'm going to, again, zoom into the right side at the larger scale. What you see here is the layout and materials plan. A little overwhelmed here by the gray shading, but that gray shading represents the new pavement. And one thing you'll notice is that Weston Avenue does have a significant area of new paving. We did meet when we had preliminary plans. We met with the engineering department to review this plan. It looked very similar to this when we met with them. And one thing that was brought to our attention is Weston Ave was recently paved. And any cutting into the pavement, in other words, not going to allow you to do trenching, whether it be for curbing or utility connections. So they stressed that basically the entire frontage of the site needed to be repaved. Nice clean saw cuts and all new pavement along the front of the site. So that's what we immediately got on the plans. So I mentioned earlier, there's a single curb cut under existing conditions. Let me just approach this quickly. That existing curb cut is right about here. So we're going to slide that curb cut over a little bit and add a second curb cut. And what that will afford is circulation around the entire building. Again, the shaded area is the pavement. I should have mentioned earlier that you can, under existing condition, drive all the way around the building, around the back of the existing building. But we're going to add that second curb cut in this area of the site, which again provides circulation around the building. 12 total parking spaces. There are, I believe, 7 on the south end of the building and the balance on the north end. The loading that Attorney Fleming spoke about is on the north side. You can see the striped, the hatched area. That is the loading area that is proposed. We did also review this plan with the fire department, and they had no comments relative to the layout, the dimensional aspects of the project, the driveway locations, et cetera. They did have some comments on utilities, which I'll talk about in a moment. There's trash enclosure that came up numerous times for the earlier projects, so I'll point that out. On the lower right-hand corner, there's a 10 by 14 dumpster enclosure with a 6-foot-high enclosure that is a cement concrete dumpster pad. There are 3 snow storage areas. You'll see the dashed rectangles. There's 2 on the right side of the project, and there's another on the lower left of the plan. And what I should have probably pointed out here is the proposed building is obviously the white box in the middle. That is where the building meets the ground. Difficult to see, but, and of course the architect will talk more about this. There's overhang all the way out here. This dashed line you see, you can see the support columns. Same on the other side of the building. So the parking is essentially under the building. So the white area, again, is the footprint that meets the ground. And that, I can't quite see those dimensions. That's 102 feet by 82 feet, roughly. So I think the next thing I'd like to talk about, I spent a lot of time on existing drainage for a very specific purpose. This is a redevelopment. Obviously, this development is going to impact that existing drainage system. That entire system needs to be removed. So I'd like to just walk you through how we are dealing with the drainage. I pointed out how big that existing drainage system was. The new drainage system resides right here, this rectangular box you see. The inner box is the edge of the actual chamber system. It's called a storm trap system. These are precast concrete units. They come in various sizes. You put the puzzle pieces together to suit your needs. Detailed plans were provided with this project for that storm trap system. It's designed exclusively by that vendor. So what's really nice about this system is the chambers are much taller in height. And I spoke about the pump station earlier when we met with the engineering department. They really wanted us to get rid of that pump station if at all possible. The way we were able to do that is to take those very shallow chamber systems that are very low and create much taller chambers so that when it inundates, it's high enough to flow out by gravity into the street. So that's how we've dealt with this. And if you're at all interested in how that works, there is a schematic that I provided on the detail sheet later in the set that really shows you, again, in a very schematic format, exactly how this drainage system functions. So there are 4 catch basins essentially in the corners of the site. It's collected and piped into that concrete chamber system. If it ever should surcharge, which again, based on the size and the volumetric storage of this thing, it's going to take a massive storm for this thing to surcharge. It will now surcharge, and the connection point is the same as it connects to today, but again, via gravity instead of a pump station. If for whatever reason there's a problem with that pipe, it gets clogged, the catch basin in the upper right corner, that is set at a very specific elevation, so if everything else failed and this system surcharged, it would bubble out of that catch basin into Western Avenue. Again, we don't ever expect that to happen, but typically when you design an infiltration system, you want a daylight situation, a fail-safe for it. So that, in this case, is the fail-safe. A couple other things about the drainage system. Where that infiltration system is located takes full advantage of the best soils that we have on the site for infiltration. So it's most conducive for infiltration. That's another positive thing regarding their location. I mentioned the pump station. We were able to remove that. The project just inherently reduces the amount of what I call dirty runoff. We have a parking lot where it's subject to oil, sand, all those things. Now we essentially have the vast majority of this site covered by clean rooftop runoff. So that's definitely a positive. The other thing is there's essentially no pervious area to speak of under existing conditions. We are adding a significant strip here. That's about 1,600 square feet, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's about 5% of this section of the site, this developable area. And I will talk about landscaping, but inherently, we've reduced the impervious on the site. We've increased or improved the water quality on the site and provided some infiltration where there's none today, just via landscaped areas. So in general, the drainage is what I would call a pretty significant improvement over existing conditions. Quickly on utilities, all the utilities that we need are readily available in Weston Avenue as required under your regulations. The profiles are provided on the top for water, drain, and sewer. We've checked for conflicts. It's all pretty straightforward. You probably don't want me to get into the weeds on utilities. This is the landscape plan, and what we have done is to provide as much landscaping as we possibly can to add some interest along the front of the building. And as you can see, we don't have a lot of opportunities for landscaping, but today there's no landscaping whatsoever. So what we're trying to balance is provide as much landscaping in the form of shrubbery along the front of the building as possible. And then on the right side of the building, that landscaped area that I told you about, we're providing some trees there, some shade trees, and also evergreens around the trash enclosure, in addition to the enclosure itself. And I pointed out earlier the snow storage areas. We didn't want to have so much plant material there that we had nowhere to put snow. So it's sort of a balance of those two aspects. In terms of the lighting, this is the photometric plan. Oddly enough, I was actually just hearing for the first time that the abutter wanted lighting to spill onto their property. That's very unusual. So when I first had this photometric run, I looked at the levels along the right side and I said, well, that's going to be a comment. You can see some of the foot candles are pretty high as you approach the right property line. But as we work through this, perhaps it isn't problematic, so perhaps we'll have some more to report to you next time we meet. But the lighting is provided, you can see the fixtures on the top of the page, those overhangs, if you will, that I described earlier. The lighting under those canopies is provided by the L19 fixture on the top, and then around the back of the building, there's some wall pack fixtures. There are two, I should also point out, there are two existing light poles here and here. Those are actually on MBTA property, they're actually encroaching. So those will be removed. We really don't need to maintain those light poles. That's a brief overview. Happy to answer any questions you may have before we turn it over to the architect. Or we want to save them to the end?
I think we
Okay.
save till the end. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Do you have the architecture drawing set?
Actually, this is
Should
all.
Yeah, it should be a
Is it in
separate.
file?
Yep, there we go.
Oh, perfect.
All right, so I'm Kristen Robbins. I'm the Senior Project Manager with BL Companies, licensed architect in Massachusetts. So as mentioned, the building itself is a 76,424 square feet. It's a 6-story building, but with self-storage, we're able to keep floor-to-floor heights lower, and I'll show you in the elevations how we're able to get the 6 stories and still keep it under that it's not a high-rise. As mentioned by Mike, you can see on the right-hand side where we have our entrance into the office is the larger parking area. So that's the extent that's all covered facing the daycare side. And you have entrance into the storage units, egress from the stairs, and the main leasing office. He also mentioned the grade change between each side of the site, which we've handled within the building with ramps and elevated floors between the two, between the loading side and the office side. On the loading side, we have a smaller overhang, kind of a drive-through area, and that's those double doors on the left. So just run through, we have approximately 680 units throughout the building. With Mike's design for the infiltration unit, we've actually designed much of the structure with this concept to make sure that we've laid out a structural grid that will work with those chambers and we can hold to the sizes that have been presented. So typical floors throughout. And we also coordinated our roof drainage with where it comes down and connecting to the underground system as well. So here are the elevations. We tried to pull from the surrounding area a bit. We have that 2-story brick building, so we wanted to really integrate the brick into that lower part of the building, you know, where more of the pedestrian level is. A lot of the massing using different boxes, juxtaposition, change of materials, again, to break up the larger volume. As you can see, our top of the parapet is 72 foot 6 inches, but we're at an average building height of 68.6. Keeps us within any restrictions or requirements for high rise. We are not within those. And I think I'll go to the rendering, as I think this tells pretty well. So as you can see further away, that's the existing self-storage. So it's considered 2-story, but it's a higher building. Not higher than, but just it doesn't read like a 2-story building, where, as I said, we can have those shorter floor-to-floor heights with self-storage. And we've compressed that loading dock area as well. And in that plan, we had a box out kind of where we have some higher volume that we needed to get into the floor. You can see that vegetation buffer at the front. And as mentioned before, this is the street side, the train tracks are on the other side, so this does provide that sound buffer and a good block from the train tracks that doesn't exist now. So I think that's the elements I had. Is there just a quick way to go back to the landscape plan, I think? Just, that might be the best for, the most simplest looking plan for traffic. I think it was C9.
There it is.
Kirsten Braun, Traffic Project Manager with Chapel Engineering Associates. So we took a look, we did the traffic assessment for this development. As was mentioned, it's about a 76,000 square foot expansion. This plan simply shows the two access points to the site. They're both full access with the circulation provided fully around the building. As part of our traffic assessment, self-storage facilities are generally a minimal impact traffic-wise. So we did perform a traffic assessment, and what that does is we quantify how much traffic could be generated by the site, and then we provide a qualitative estimate of the impact on the adjacent streets, so how many trips we can expect on the north side of Weston Avenue and the south side in Chester Street. And we also take a look at the safety of the two site access points here relative to sight lines and you know, how the landscaping impacts visibility or the buildings itself, just to make sure that the site is going to operate safely. To start, though, we estimated the trip generation of the site. We actually did collect traffic counts at the existing site during the weekday morning, PM, and Saturday midday peak periods, just to kind of see what the site is generating today. And what we were able to do was to make empirical trip generation rates based on that data and the size of the existing building, which I think is about 46,000 square feet. So we took a look at that to see what kind of traffic we might expect based on actual trips going to the site today, because we expect a comparable amount of trips in the future. And what we found is we can actually expect 5 additional trips during the weekday AM peak hour, 3 additional trips during the weekday PM peak hour, and 12 additional trips during the Saturday midday peak hour. And when I say that, that's not 12 entering and 12 exiting, that's total. That's exiting and entering traffic. We also took a look at standard traffic engineering practices to use IT trip generation data. So we also compared the data that we had collected empirically to the ITE. And what we found is ITE actually had slightly higher estimates, with 7 trips during the weekday AM peak hour, 11 trips during the weekday PM peak hour, and 13 trips during the Saturday midday peak hour. So we actually used that data in our assessment to just quantify what kind of increase in traffic we'll see on the adjacent streets to provide a conservative assessment, when ideally, though, we do think that it'll be more similar to the empirical data that we collected. So using those higher trip generation rates from ITE, we do expect, we estimate on Weston Avenue about 1 to 3 additional trips north of the site driveways, which represents 1 trip maybe every 20 to 60 minutes. We expect the largest increase on Chester Avenue, just because most people will go across and head toward back towards their destinations that way, and even so, it's 4 to 7 additional trips, which represents 1 additional vehicle every 8.5 to 15 minutes. These increases are really negligible. You're not going to notice them on the adjacent street. You won't really notice them whatsoever as an increase. I mean, traffic fluctuates day to day by that many trips as is. So we also took a look at the safety of the site access points. The sight lines are based on the adjacent street speed of traffic, and as such, we noted that you have the minimum sight distance required. It's pretty much a straight shot down Weston Avenue either way. So sight distances are adequate to allow for safe operation. Lastly, not in the study, we took a look after the fact at parking on site, because 12 parking spaces for such a large building seems like a minimal amount of spots, but we did take a look at ITE trip generation data specifically related to parking demand, and what we found was that 11 parking spaces are generally required for a facility of this size, and we included the entire site, so that's the 123,000 square feet. So mostly in summary, these kinds of uses have minimal traffic impact. They're not very impactful when it comes to traffic, and the site access points will operate safely, so we don't really see a traffic issue.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So that is the applicant's presentation, Madam Chair, and I just wanted to highlight, just to add to what Kirsten just said about the traffic, the parking. I analyzed the 2 existing facilities. One is 27 Liberty Street, it's 118,000 square feet. It has 10 parking spaces, and then one at 671 Washington Street, it's 123,000 square feet and has 13 spaces. So it's very consistent with the numbers that were provided. So that's our presentation.
Thank you. Let me see if anybody has any questions.
I do.
Yes.
So everybody's heard of Extra Space before, they're all over the country. The developer, STG, now, so do you guys do this in other parts of have you done these before? Is this your first one, second one, third, 100th, or?
Hello, I'm Dave Williams. I'm a principal of SDG Development and the co-applicant. I'm a development partner with Extra Space. We've built between 2 and 3 million square feet up and down the East Coast, but a lot in New England. As Ed mentioned, we built the one on Liberty Street back in 2014, something like that. So we've got a lot of experience in self-storage. Extra Space is the largest self-storage operator in the country. They're very good at operating, but they lean on development partners to do this part of the work for them. So that's why we're.
Do you guys act like as a franchisee, like, is that how they?
No, they own the property, they'll own this finished product, but we're helping them develop it.
So do they typically keep somebody at the building 24/7? It's open 7 to 7, it's open, how do you get in the building, how do you get out of the building?
Sure. So it's not open 24/7. It is key operated. The way self-storage works is the first time somebody comes, they park and they go into the office and they sign a lease. When they come back to either put their belongings in or take them out, they go in through a keypad system, go to the loading area, and they can go in and out of the building. These buildings typically have 2 hours posted. One is gate hours and one is office hours. Office hours here, I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but it's typically about 9:30 in the morning until 5:30 or 6 at night. There'll be somebody on site in the office. And then the gate hours, somebody could come like after work up to a certain time, 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So there would be access after hours.
And that's a 7-day-week operation? There's
Yes, it
somebody
is.
on the site?
Yes.
I only ask this because I know sometimes people start hanging around in these places and you just want to make sure that you don't have any like security issues or, you know, people like decide it's a great place to camp, let me just rent one of these cheap, I'll sleep there tonight, you know?
Sure. So the leases are very standard. The thing about the new modern self-storage, it's very bright, it's very light, we've got cameras all over the place. The manager during the day, during periodic times, will do a complete walk of the site to make sure that nobody's loitering, nobody's doing something wrong. We're very careful that people aren't trying to stay in a unit, obviously. The electric is made sure that there's no power in units or near units, so somebody can't improvise. But between the cameras, the keypad access, the manager knows when somebody has entered the site and when they're leaving the site, and they're, you know, visible from the cameras. There's also not a lot of visits. Once you put your belongings in, people don't go visit it. We did a recent study on a number of facilities, including this, the existing one, and it's average of 10 to 12 people coming in the building a day. So there's not a lot of activity, so the manager certainly can pick up on it.
Thank you very much.
I guess to the engineer. I've worked on many MBTA projects over my career. I know how the bureaucracy works. You mentioned that you have been in touch with the MBTA. I do believe this property will fall under the MBTA influence area. How quickly do you think you'll get an answer of what you need done?
Actually, Dave can answer that better than me. He actually attended the meetings.
What a joy.
Lucky me.
We first talked about this project with the planning group probably about a year ago. We had a lot of site engineering that we had to get through. At that initial time, Attorney Fleming told us that we needed to file for a license with the MBTA. So we had a meeting right away. We have filed for that license already in anticipation. If things go forward, we know that the time frame in order to get that done can be long. So we went kind of ahead of schedule and we filed for that.
The only reason why I ask is we've had other projects come in front of this board, and they have since been shut down. So I would see what you can do to expedite them. I know that's like a very slim chance, but
Pushing a rock up a hill?
I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna need that in order to proceed.
Sure.
Before you put a shovel on the ground.
Yes, we understand. Like I mentioned, we were told that we needed to do it. We've taken it seriously, and we've already filed for that.
Okay, so you'll start around 2028.
Hopefully not.
And then,
Go ahead, say it.
and so you are the developer?
Yes.
Do you have your own crews?
Yes.
You travel all up or down the East Coast with your crews?
So we have, lately our work has been local, but we're Massachusetts-based. We're both a developer and a general contractor.
Okay, so when you're hiring extra people, that, you know, men and women of Quincy would love to work on a project, there's a lot of good contractors that live in the area that can hire the men and women of the city of Quincy. So please keep that into consideration, because the building is going to be in Quincy. The taxpayers that live here should have the opportunity to work on a project in the city.
Any questions? Yeah.
On the infiltration, please, if you want to get up to the podium, please. Great job explaining it. That caught my eye, you know, that existing system, and on the sketch. So in my ignorance, I would have looked at stumbling upon something like that as a gift. Oh man, I can just incorporate everything into this existing system. You've chosen a different one, and I really, really like it. But for clarification, is that new system now going to handle 2 roof runoffs? The
Yes.
one, yeah. So it's smaller than the existing, but I know you engineered it right. But that was just it. I know that the existing system handles the roof of the building next
Yes.
door. So your new system is going to handle both.
Yes, the site essentially is entirely impervious now. So the reason, the way that we match the volume with the bigger system, you would look at it just in terms of its size.
Yeah.
And it's deceiving. Again, the new system is very tall.
Got it.
Where
Okay.
the existing system is very flat and shallow. So this is the storm trap system that's included in the permit documents. That's the array of the chambers that you see there. Just to give you a sense as to how these things work. This is a cross-section of the chambers, how they all are attached to one another. And these are all just details regarding how it's constructed, but that's essentially how the system
No,
works.
it's great. I just wanted to clarify that it is still handling the other building as well.
Yes.
And one last thing is, for my own curiosity, how often is a system like that cleaned out, maintained, where you go into, you know, is there a maintenance plan on it?
Yeah, much like your open detention basins,
Yeah.
catch basins, manholes, we submitted an O&M plan with our drainage calculations that addresses that. We relied on Storm Trap for that particular component. They're the best resource. And there's also a lot of details on their plans that are included that talk about maintenance, access, you know, where access hatches need to be for inspection and maintenance, things of that nature.
That's great. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Thank you. I do just have a couple of questions. So the building story, I know it was or the existing building was referenced as a 2-story building, but it's kind of larger than a traditional 2-story. So what is the height of that existing building?
That's a great question.
There are about 11-foot ceilings in that building.
I've been calling it
It's
sort of a
it's
2.5
around, it's
story
around a
building.
half story above.
Yeah.
So it's probably in the 30-foot range.
Okay, I mean, I'd be interested, I think we'll probably continue, yeah. And kind of if you could, an elevation plan showing the difference, because it is significant. I mean, a 6-story storage building is significant. And so, I guess, and this is probably a question for Attorney Fleming, have you connected, I see that there's a residence across the street and there was reference to a condo. Have you done a neighbor outreach specifically, just concerning, because it's a tall building that you're introducing to the site?
We didn't, and I did reach out to Councilor Mitten late. So we're certainly happy to reach out and speak with the neighbors between this meeting and the next meeting, if there's any concerns of the neighborhood. I know that condominium association can sometimes be somewhat active, and we can certainly happy to meet them. And I know Councilor Mitten's here, so I'll talk with him.
Okay, great. I think there was reference to a setback being 30 feet for the MBTA, but then I saw that there was a 20-foot building setback, so I just wanted some clarification on
The
that.
building setback from a zoning standpoint is 20 feet,
Yeah.
but that zone of influence, or whatever they call it, is 30 feet.
So is it 30 feet from the property line?
Yes.
Okay. But you're proposing this 20 feet from,
To clarify, the
yeah, if
zoning-
you could just come up to the podium, thank you for the viewers at home.
That 30-foot zone of influence is anything within 30 feet of the MBTA.
Triggers the-
Triggers having to
Okay.
get a license to work
Okay.
next to the
So it's
tracks.
not a setback?
That's not a
Right,
setback,
okay,
yeah.
that's helpful, thank you. And then, I know you're using that space right now, or the company's using that space for exterior storage. Is there any exterior storage proposed for this future use?
There is not.
No, so that will be eliminated. And then, just a question about, I mean, you've designed these, so I assume it does, but with that overhang there, is there space for a fire truck? I guess, how would the fire truck move throughout the site? Is there space to go under that?
That's a great question. I did reach out to the fire department.
Yeah.
We sent them this plan. I had several conversations. They have no desire to bring fire apparatus on the site. To paraphrase, we don't want a fire truck next to a burning building. So what they would rather do is fight a fire from Weston Avenue. So I made it
Okay.
clear that smaller apparatus could circulate around the site, but in terms of a ladder truck, they have no interest in bringing a ladder truck on this site. That's exactly what I was told,
Okay.
I mean,
in terms of the height, the clearance height.
Yeah.
yeah, I can add to that, that the building is designed as not to require the frontage on all sides of the building. We did our calculations, square footage, it's a fully sprinklered building, that we meet the requirements for it to be only from Weston Ave.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. And then what is the clearance? Just any, I mean, I assume it's big enough to, accommodate if somebody brings a U-Haul truck on site, right? So what is, I guess, the clearance being provided there?
I can't read that. Typically, we have 14 feet is kind of our standard.
Okay.
For,
Okay.
yeah, okay. That's our standard for,
Loading area, it's taller than the loading area.
correct.
And so would that accommodate, let's say, even a larger truck than, so like an 18-wheeler, like a,
Mayflower
larger
moving truck?
moving truck?
I don't know what
No,
size that is.
it wouldn't accommodate that.
No.
So that would be accommodated on the street?
We can check that, but I don't, it's not intended to accommodate that. And again, consistent with what the fire department told me, we have no interest in bringing a large truck onto the site, so.
Yeah, but I mean, what if a user says, hey, I'm gonna rent some storage space, they're cleaning out or they're moving, their whole house out, where does that truck go, I guess, right? Because, I mean, I understand the site's not designed for that, but that's I think, a use that you could contemplate could be made.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, I think a standard box truck, this site would likely accommodate, but a full tractor trailer, it's certainly not designed to accommodate that, even, on the ground, let alone the height.
And we don't typically have those vehicles, so in many of the self-storage that we've designed,
So I can add to this site, the existing building, in addition to having a loading dock on this side of the building, has 2 loading docks on the side of the building. So a truck can back down the side and offload into the back of the existing building.
Okay.
So a long truck could back down the
Yes.
side, so if someone did, like Kim is suggesting, someone comes in with a tractor-trailer truck, because they were moving cross-country, they changed their plans, hey, we gotta unload this baby. You can go right down the side of it?
You can. It's very rare in a facility like this.
yeah.
We had the same question on Liberty Street when we did that. There you go.
So, yeah, can a bigger truck just be accommodated, or how will you manage it?
Yes.
You know, and a lot of times you'll probably know what's coming, right?
Yes.
They'll call ahead.
I
So
think
how
he-
will that be managed, and, can you do it on-site or in
Sure.
the sister facility?
I think either on the back, you could also back a truck into here with 14-foot clearance. You'd be able to get under that overhang.
You're gonna back all the way up, just give me a moment, I'll show
Yeah.
you what Dave's talking about on the overall site plan, right here.
So that right now, there are these 2 loading docks here. So a truck can back down here and offload onto one of these 2 loading docks to get into this building. There's enough height that a truck could back into here.
You could manage it, yes.
To manage it, yes.
So a long truck, so a long tractor trailer truck on the bottom left-hand corner, how's it gonna back around there to get in down that, like running parallel to the,
It would come here, but it would back down into here.
it would,
And then pull out.
I'm not gonna use the new building.
right,
Well, also,
it's never gonna happen.
just to note, the extent
They're all
of
small
that
units, you see the
cover
size.
for
Yeah,
the building
yeah, yeah.
is that lot.
Okay, yeah,
So this is
Yeah, it's not
actually
gonna happen.
not
Open to
covered.
the sky, right?
yeah, okay.
So the truck could back into the.
Correct.
I have one other question too first. Have you guys ever built one of these next to the commuter rail or the MBTA anywhere else? Because when you talk about like a 30-foot setback, you know that they also have the rules about if you foul the tracks or if you can, so if you set a crane up there, it could foul, tips over, it fouls the tracks.
Yes.
I'm only thinking about the delays, like they're gonna say to you, maybe it's not 28, it might be the 2038, so.
So we have before, in that particular community, they didn't push for us to get licensing or anything like that, and we built the building without.
Well, this is the red line, so they're not gonna let you do that.
Absolutely. So we built one in Jamaica Plain, right on the orange line.
Okay.
We built one in Needham, right on the.
So you know
the
about
commuter
the-
rail.
okay.
We built one in Bridgeport, right on the train tracks. So we are familiar with the process and the concern.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a public hearing, so we'll see if anybody here would like to make public comment on this. You can also sign in along the window for or against. Is anyone here to speak on this project? No? Okay. All right, so I think we will need to continue.
Yeah,
think
I think with a neighborhood meeting, I think
Yes.
the 2 months should give this project enough elbow room
Okay.
to finish up the review.
Okay, so that would be continuance through
June 25th.
to June 25th. Is there a motion?
To continue to June 25th.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck with the MBTA. I'm on an MBTA project, so I know all the bureaucracy, trust me, they're on it 3 years.
Even worse than the power suppliers, huh?
Yeah, because we deal with, I'm at South Station, we got Keolis, Amtrak, MBTA, we have the Mass Department of Transportation, there's Homeland Security involved there, there's,
All right, so
Good
we
job.
have
Thank
4 business meeting items, so we'll keep moving forward. So I think we'll start with 1562 and 1570 Hancock Street, Planning Board Case Number 2022, COC 01. It's a request for modification of previously approved plans.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the board. The planning board originally approved a project located at 1562 and 1570 Hancock Street in June of 2022. In 2023, the proponent had filed a foundation permit where it was found to have sited the pad-mounted electrical transformers in the public right-of-way. This new location would impact the sidewalk, the general Dunford Drive roadway, and the loading operations of the proposed new building. The planning department stepped back in and re-engaged the peer review engineer to assist with analyzing this utility conflict. After a series of different design alternatives were analyzed, a new location was identified back on the project site along General Dunford Drive. The proponent then met with National Grid to secure preliminary approval of this new transformer location. And with National Grid's preliminary endorsement, the planning department is ready to recommend to this body, the planning board, the endorsement of the minor plan change. Now, before you deliberate on this matter, the department has created 2 additional conditions that are proposed to be added to the original decision. The first is a general condition that links the certificate of consistency planning board approval to the land disposition agreement by providing evidence that a certificate of completion has been issued under the terms of the LDA. The LDA items include, parking lease agreement, lot consolidation plans. There's sort of other elements that are part of that urban renewal agreement that aren't under the purview of this board, so that certificate of completion we're suggesting be added at the end of occupancy permit, where the proponent needs to just provide evidence that all those items in that agreement have been executed. The second condition we're asking the board to consider adding to this decision is identified through that utility analysis. On larger projects, DPW has requested peer review engineers perform oversight of the installation of the stormwater systems. And the current transformer location that's being proposed will need to fit amongst a number of other utility systems where it didn't before, including electrical and gas. So we've asked the proponent that, or not asked, but requested that the peer review scope be expanded from just stormwater, where the peer review engineer will also review the installation of the electrical, the gas, the other meters. And that came from discussions with the Department of Public Works. So that is my brief presentation. I will read these conditions. So these would be the conditions we'd ask to be included if the board does choose to endorse this minor plan change. It'd be number 22, so thankfully I don't have to read all the 21 we did 2 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
You're welcome. But 22 would read, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall provide evidence that a certificate of completion has been granted in accordance with section 18.2.1 of the land disposition agreement by and between the city of Quincy and Andrian Shapiro and Alex Matov doing business as LBC partners. Special condition number 23 would read, per special condition number 15 on the planning board decision dated June 8th, 2022, the applicant has agreed to fund the Planning and Community Development Department's independent peer review engineering account. Further, as a result of this minor modification, the applicant shall fund an increased scope of independent engineering oversight services, which include stormwater system construction and other subsurface utility installation, sidewalk design and construction oversight, and as-built plan review in addition to the services listed in the special condition number 15. So that would conclude my report on the minor plan change. I know we've communicated information to members. Be happy to answer any questions. We have a couple of representatives here from LBC that could answer any questions if need be. But yeah, this was a bit of a struggle, talking about transformers, that seems to be a National Grid. And their rigid policies of where these things can go can really, foul up some project sites and project plans. And this is just in a very congested site on Hancock and Hannon Parkway. So that would be the department's recommendation.
And I would just note, for the record too, that this approval, if we approve it, does note the revised plan date, so incorporating those changes in the changed location. So that is incorporated.
Yeah, we framed it, not as sort of a full new decision, but a communication to clerk inspectional services. But on all of our decisions, we do list all of the plan sets, so we've now got to add, because just that one transformer triggered a number of plan changes to a number of other sheets. But by and large, it's still a mixed-use project. First floor retail up on Hancock on a number of units. It has on-site parking. There was some loading area modifications that have occurred, but they were really de minimis.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just help me out here on, just with my memory. So, right off of Hannon Parkway, right? When is this gonna start, this project? Is this,
Probably immediately.
and how long would this take to do?
We're estimating 24 months. We've asked for about 24 months for that peer review oversight. So we've sort of budgeted out 24 months.
So construction would start?
Correct. There's some buildings on site today,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you'll probably see demolition of those buildings very quickly after this permit is updated.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes.
Good, Madam Chair. I'd just like to introduce to the board the owner's project manager, Ward Jaros, and Mr. Jaros, and Dave Snell, who's from PCA, and they very, very fortunate for them to get to spend an entire evening with us. And at the same time, I had an opportunity to talk to both of them outside, and they understood the importance of the presence and that they did not have to be before the board, as you know. But they wanted an opportunity to come just introduce themselves by name. If there's anything major, he's got it all. He's had a big list, but I just thought you'd give a chance to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Board, yeah. Anything that I can answer for you? I've been in the industry for a long time. With some of the larger firms, Consigli, Delbrook, as a vice president, started my own company, Rubicon. I sold off several years ago, and now I've been an OPM for the last 6. Thousands of units at this point. I've been in relationship at one point or another, whether it was a field superintendent back when I was young, all the way to owner of a company in my later years. So, yep.
That's exciting that you're gonna be here doing this. This is
Yeah,
good stuff,
it's a great project.
you know? Great.
Keystone project to the, kind of the last little corner of that
Yeah,
block.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's right next to where Scott and Sean have that, is that where it is? Right next to Scott and Sean Galvin's building? It's that piece?
Kind of across the street, not all the way up the Hancock, that whole side of the.
Oh, yeah, it's where Patty Burks is now moving out. Oh, Patty Barry's,
So
okay.
they'll be leaving on the 27th is their closing date.
Gotcha, wow. Well, congratulations, thanks for coming to Quincy.
Thank you.
Well, and just remember, when you're going out to look for men and women of Quincy, would love to work on a project of this magnitude.
And we've got Callahan Union Company as well, as you know, doing this project, so they'll be.
Callahan's non-union, I believe.
I think we're doing some.
Callahan,
union-
who did the one across from North Quincy High School?
We're doing a bunch of union trades in this project, so
Hmm.
you'll need to know.
What trades would be
Callahan
union?
does both.
We are doing site work, concrete, steel, framing, as I understand it. And I haven't seen all the buyout trades yet, but.
Are you waiting here for electricians?
Just listening.
Yeah, I haven't, as the OPM, as I get involved with some of the early buyout reviews, but I will know more as they reveal more to me.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for coming and for sitting.
Yeah.
I can say, just for what it's worth, Dave Snell, principal of PCA. I've been on this project since day one, shepherding the design process, working through, and, as you know, this is a really important project for, the city, this area. And I think, our design has taken in a lot of feedback from you all. And I really hope our team feels that the thorough reviews that have been provided, really insightful feedback. We hope that you've been appreciative of our thorough responses, and we understand the importance of getting this right. And so I just want to say that our firm is really proud to be doing a building of this importance in Quincy. So thank you.
Thank you.
And it's going to be Callahan as your GC, you've already
Yeah,
selected
oh,
him?
yeah, we've engaged them. They put in the permit application back in '23, so.
Thank you.
So is there a motion to approve?
A motion to approve the amendments?
With the two.
With the 2 additional special conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so that's unanimous. A couple A&R plans, so entitled to endorsement.
Thank you, guys.
29 Broady Street was planning board case number 2025 A&R 07, and the other is 333 Victory Road, planning board case number 2025 A&R 09. And then, last but not least, it's that time of year to elect officers of the planning board. So we need a chair and a vice chair.
A chair and a vice chair, correct. And any volunteers, or?
Make a
Anyone wanna
motion
speak?
that we let Madam Chair have another year.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for letting me do that.
All right, second.
And since Larry's not here, he should be the vice chair.
Yeah.
That's what, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And that's
Sure
for both
Larry will be
chair-
happy
Chair and
as well.
vice chair.
Yes.
Yeah, one vote.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, sir.
There we go.